intoxicated. We're automated and overpopulated. Don't you know we're the walking dead? Our lives were meant to be this bleak. Somehow they got into us. Intoxicated in our heads. We're wide awake, in the end still asleep. We feel the same
Very good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Octane Online Racing Simrigs Sprint Series here. Round 6 here at the lovely wet Hungaroring this week. My name is Mitch Hobbs. We've got Brent Sykes on the broadcasting cameras, and joining me in the box is Mr. Cam Thistlethwaite. How are you doing this lovely evening, Cam?
I'm doing very well, Mitch. Here in the sea of tears that is Hungaroring, and there'll be many tears, I'm sure, tonight. But yes, here we are for the fully wet fixed round of 60 minutes here at Split Yellow for Hungaroring. Only 3 rounds left for this championship, and it's all on Spinazzi's shoulders to arguably throw it away if anything else goes with the absence of Chris Taylor.
No, you don't jinx that. You don't jinx that sort of stuff, but I mean, you're not wrong. It's certainly very wet here. 60-minute one, only one race this evening. One 60-minute race with one mandatory pit stop, 4 tyres. Now, there is a pit window in this one. 5 minutes into the race, it does open, and 5 minutes left in the race, it will close. So drivers have got a reasonably wide range of strategy calls that they could make. Of course, being they've got to take tyres, they'll probably take some fuel as well. But yes, we've got a set wet round this week. Certainly going to be exciting. Hope the drivers have been practicing their wet driving, especially given that Hungary's not a particularly easy track to drive in the wet. What are your thoughts on this week? Are we going to see any carnage, or is it going to be nice and clean if people done their practice?
I think it's clean, and we should count our ducks lucky and put them in a row. But yes, it's surely gonna be carnage. Here tonight, it is a very tricky track at the best of times. It requires a lot of commitment from slow corners in the dry. So in the wet, it's dare say even more paramount to keep it on the grey stuff. There is a lot of AstroTurf on the exits here in particular, and we say these things like they're dangers, but arguably I think it's what makes this track great as well. As Wesley Yao is the first to start a lap, and also the first to miss the apex of turn 1. Won't be the only one for sure, but will still, you might as well just go out there, just do laps, fuel up for the whole session. Don't come in, don't change tires. There's no point really unless you flat spot them. Just get out there, keep circulating, keep getting, and you'll just get better, and you'll slowly shave off time lap after lap.
Yeah, absolutely. We can just see, even from the point of view of Wes Yao, that it's really slippery out there. This is probably, and he's gone invalid. Yep, and it's funny. I did the walkthrough this week, Cam, for anybody who wanted to come along and Octane Series. And I did talk about don't hit the AstroTurf on the outside here too much, because that exactly will happen. So certainly going to be interesting to see the sort of lines that people might be taking to keep the cars on track. I'm boarding with Bub now coming into the chicane. Nice exit. Done well so far. Not using too much of the chicane though. Nice movement throughout this part of the lap.
Arguably the chicane should be easier because you're not carrying as much speed into it. Unlike the dry, it's obviously not the best set of corners for the low slung McLaren, but I'm sure it does the job nicely. And I'm sure the GTR behind him takes it even nicer.
Yes, I have heard some rumours around the GTR is very good in the wet, and looks very good here. So we'll have to keep an eye on. Definitely Stan Buskovus. He'll be one to keep an eye on here. I've seen some of the times he was doing in practice, and they're looking pretty impressive. So maybe performance here is Paul Brick decides he wants to go lawn mowing in the rain. That's an interesting decision on his part.
Yeah, not sure if that was him just trying to get out of the way, because he was on the valid originally, but we'll see on that one. We'll wind up for a second one. Stan Buskovus goes to the top of the field. Not surprising, as I think he did a 51 as he put his lap up as well on YouTube, which was pretty exemplary. Can't say I've driven a GTR here, but it's not. I can see it not being in too bad of a circuit, especially in the wet conditions, because there's just so many short acceleration zones. Not complete slow speed corners, or a lot of these mid speed corners, and there's just plenty for the turbos and the shorter gears on the GTR to go. Ooh, as I think that was Stockton go for a spin on exit and return to garage subsequently.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on board with Jared Ellis now, who's looks like, judging by his delta, he's had a bit of a shocker of a first lap, 3.1 seconds off the pace. We're probably going to see a fairly large delta gap variance between the drivers here, given it's Hungary is a pretty. I think people sort of underestimate how tough Hungary can actually be in the dry, let alone in the wet. So certainly going to be interesting to see how the drivers can handle this one. I mean, almost 2 seconds up Ellis. That's going to put him fair way up the
That's
board.
wide,
Quite a few
that's
drivers.
invalid.
Yep, that's another thing we can talk about. Going invalid. I mean, he's pretty close to the top. Jerry at the moment, 52.9, just over 2/10 faster than Spinazzi. Buskovich is in that same boat, but he's currently got the delta for pole, but there is still the final sector to go through, and this is a bit of a nasty one. If you do get it wrong, he's hitting the curb quite nicely there. A bit of the AstroTurf on the outside. No real looseness from the Nissan at this point. Around the second to last corner. Not going too wide, which is good. Gets a solid exit. It's got the TC quite high. Ooh, a little bit of a slide coming into the corner, but he's just danced it in nicely. But he's really lost it on the exit. It's just going to be under 2 tenths. He'll go P2, but and Paul Britz just said, hello, I'm here. And Jerry's said, no, I'll just go over faster. So another 3.5 tenths to, never mind. I've been lied to.
Eddie Bishop, the 89 Pro-Am entry in the Aston Martins. I heard a few people in the Aston Martins who had some pretty sly grins on their face, I think, after doing some practice in across the various splits. And the Aston could be one to watch, and that's a great time from Bishop there as well. Excellent job. But yeah, just to touch on as well, like Stan Muscovus in the GTR, through these last couple of corners where car rotation is everything, not surprising the GTR is, a little bit tricky through those last set. But I'm sure it's probably going to go better here than it would do if it was dry, knowing the sort of requirements, because I think when it's dry here, you kind of rely a little bit more on the overall downforce of the car, especially through those back S's, would you say?
Yeah, look, the downforce, especially the rotations, you say is going to be quite useful. You can see above now. I have heard from a couple of drivers the McLaren does actually struggle here a little bit, so it'd be interesting to see if those words are valid or not. I do believe they are from what I've heard. Yep, it's certainly good for you. I think when the varying changing conditions, Bubnow's gone really wide there, just went a bit deep, and he's lost probably half a second after that little incident. So he's not going to go. I thought he was going to be up in the top 3 there with that time, but he's just lost it. If he'd have kept letting him go. Or Buskovich, though. Hello, we've got a purple lap here at the moment. Still got the final corner left. He's pulling something out here, of course, with the cars driving around. The track will dry up. Probably not enough to make a huge difference, but I mean, that is a solid exit. He's going to easily take pole here. It's going to be almost there. 52.1. That's a solid lap. Half a second ahead of Bishop. I mean, that's a very impressive time in general from Bishop to put it up into P2 being a Pro-Am. That is a very solid time. The Aston is a very solid choice, but of course it takes a solid driver to put it there. So he's done an absolutely cracking job there. Cathal Slade now just really trying to dance the car through this middle sector. Looks like he's having a couple of internet issues. I don't blame him, given it's probably raining where he is and it's raining where I am, so that's probably not helping his internet too much. Through pass right-hander. Gets nicely, doesn't hit too much of the curb. But I don't know how long he's going to last if he keeps bouncing around like that. The stewards are going to probably have something to say about that. But, around the second to last corner comes there. Ben Winton sitting P16 at the moment. It's 10th up after turn 1, so looking for those gains a little bit deep into turn 2 or 3 or whatever they count it as. And down nicely. Hitting a lot of the curb. That's really dangerous. And yeah, he goes invalid. This is very dangerous. And the McLaren in the background does the same thing. That's scary.
Yeah, very scary indeed. Not the Slade wouldn't be the only one with issues. I think there's a few storms out there. Unfortunately, we lost our commentator Lindsay Muddle, who is to be coming tonight. Has lost their net as well. So just Australia things a little bit with the weather and the temperament with the climate. But the Bentley goes for a spin, and it's going to say he was struggling a few corners earlier and finds the wall. He will have time to go out again though and do a valid. But yes, unfortunately for Bentley. But Piper sitting in P6 right now. It's could be worse positions to hit the wall.
Yeah, I mean, certainly nothing to complain about. The Bentley is certainly not a strong car in the wet, so he's done a cracking effort to put it up into P6. King,
Ryan
though, is doing
King's
an absolute
doing well.
cracking effort. Pro-Am driver, 6.5 tenths up. If he can find a bit of time in this final corner, didn't look like it coming in entry, maybe on the exit. Ooh, he's certainly got enough for a top 3 here. Ooh, he lost
That's
a bit on exit, though, so I'm probably going to eat my own words. Oh, just sneaks into P3. Well, 2 Pro-Ams in the top 3. That is a round of applause to them. That is a cracking job.
Indeed. Looks like we do have some qualifying bans, I believe, as well for split yellow, which is why some cars are out there. I was wondering why Kumar wasn't. But yes, granted, we've got a lot of cars on track right now. I think, was it 23 right now? And each lap, as Tom Kidman does improve a little bit, gets a little bit squirrely on the exits, though. But we'll have time for another. But yes, with this many cars on track as well, it is probably slightly drying out. Maybe there's just less standing water out there. Gradually, the more, as I said, the more laps you do, the more you familiarize yourself with the conditions. You just got to go out there, just pluck away, do laps. It's not about tires and, are they in the peak window and blah, 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 like it is in the dry. You just got to go out there and, just pedal.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly just got to keep pushing in the wet here. Just got to keep going, and those lap times will come down. Paul Brett, he's almost 6 tenths, and just go 6 tenths up there as I got to say that. Loses a little bit on the exit, so he's proving my theory of McLaren being bad wrong. Oh, getting really slidey though. He's pushing that car. He's going full acceleration around there. He's trying to dance that car around like it's on ice, and it's probably not far off it given the conditions here. And down to the third to last. Let's see. Yep, he's avoiding the curb down there. That's a good decision. You can really get the exit right. If you're just trying to avoid that curb as much as possible. Second to last. Goes for a wide entry, but then just tightens it up, which is a really good strategy. So a nice exit overall. Just tap with the brakes. Oh, Babsy goes P1 with a 51.9. That's a cracking time, but I think Paul Britt's going to break that here. Not by much, though. Maybe half a tenth. Yeah, not even. Goes pole 51.952 to Babs 8.7. So that's really close there. Costa goes P8 with a 52.5. That's a very respectable time from him. Burn at the moment. Ooh, he was 3/4 of a second up and just lost it through the fast right hand. It's a really difficult one in the wet. Down to the third to last now. Still half a second up. Could get a couple of positions here. Not too many because there's a bit of a gap there in the delta between a couple of the drivers, but I'm sure something can be recovered in these final. Ooh, that's really deep though. That's going to hurt the delta a bit. Loses half of his delta at least, but can gun a little bit back on the exit. But the final corner left goes really wide. Needs to get it in probably a little bit tighter on exit if he can, and he does. It's only going to get him up one position though, but still P16, almost in the top 15. It's a solid effort there.
Absolutely. It's the last few stragglers. It's John Stockton now 4 times up, goes up to P17 in the Pro-Am Ferrari. Only the last few stragglers, Zeri being one of them, is up on their delta, but slowly dwindling away with a bad exit out of turn 12. Coming into now turn 13 and 14. Arguably, I think the 2 hardest corners on this track, but maybe that's just my shortcomings with it. But going now, still up on their delta, arguably might not be enough for a good exit. Might just clinch Bub now, as he is only 1/100th ahead. And yes, there we go, does go ahead. And just shy of Ryan King's excellent P5. Spinoza here, invalid, and also not, yeah, unfortunately. Championship leader, P9, so right in the death bell of the pack. It could be worse, could be a bit further back, a little bit more in the danger zone, but still not completely in the clear from where he is. A great job by Brett and Babby.
Well under bad. That's a cracking front row for him. I reckon maybe if he'd just really nailed that last corner, he might have had that on Britt, but I'm not going to put it past Britt. He is an absolutely fantastic driver, very experienced in the OR community and on ACC, so there's no doubt he was certainly in for a chance, and he has delivered there for the Laundry House team. You can see all the clouds in the sky, the rain coming down. The drivers will have their strategies in place and what they're going to do. Of course, as we said, there's the lovely grid there. It's having a bit of a whinge, but down in in the mid-pack's probably not where you want to be, given that it's in the wet and you're going to have that spray on the start. Certainly not going to be an ideal location for a couple of drivers, like, as you say, Spinazzi, Piper dropped down after those late lap times. Likes of Kay, Yao, Price, Davies, Alice Byrne are really not in a good spot if things do go pear-shaped. So hopefully the drivers just keep it a bit more respectful and remind themselves it is a wet race and it will be lap one. So maybe they're just a little bit of backing off a little bit early just to keep their other drivers around them in mind, of course, to not cause those incidents. But, I mean, track is wet, medium rain decreasing. It's not going to really change much in the grand scheme of things, but we'll see what the strategies are for some drivers.
Should run through the grid. Just a reminder on the settings, it is a 60-minute race and a 50-minute pit window. So pit window opens 5 minutes in, closes 5 minutes before the end of the race. Must serve your mandatory one tire stop in the given pit window to obviously not get a penalty at the end of the race. But yeah, we'll have a few people at the very back of the grid who unfortunately come afoul some misdemeanors. And I believe they are starting with Mr. Kumar here, and everyone down from there has either gotten a grid penalty, qualifying ban, or obviously not qualified as well. Their choice. Hopefully they can come through the field if they are quicker than some of the cars ahead nicely and conservatively. We don't want to have any frills or spills too much.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a flurry of quali bans this week, as they were chosen by the stewards not to serve them last week, given there was a sprint race around, which is, I think that's understandable choice from the stewards there. We can see the drivers getting their wipers on and getting ready to rumble here as Britty leaves the line. Babs just leaving, doing a bit of a skid there, getting the tyres warm. The wet tyres don't take too long to warm up. Usually take about 1 or 2 laps to really get up to pressure, and then from there they'll hit their off a little bit later. See the drivers jump into single file.
Yep. The McLaren from the Porsche from the GTR.
What's going on here? I never heard of that. Maybe they're going double file around.
I think you can choose to go single file or double file.
Yeah.
Some people don't like to.
Now they're feeling.
Yeah. And, you can see the spray is definitely a factor, and for those who don't drive on bonnet cam, it's gonna be pretty significant, especially if you're basically on 2 rows of the grid, and especially from down to turn 1. It is a short run from the start-finish line down to turn 1. I've been keenly watching Stan Baskova's GTR off the start because I'm sure it'll be pretty mighty, but as I said, it is quite a short run. Porsche leaps off the line pretty well as well, and McLaren not too badly, I think. Especially if you do a bit of brake boosting. I think it's the current trend. I'm sure Paul Britt, he just needs to get to the apex of turn 1 first, and he can probably hold it from here on there. But we shall see. It'll be a little bit test of endurance. Keeping it on track for 60 minutes. This weather is pretty static so far. It is, maybe going to lessen off a little bit with the rain in 30 minutes, but we shall see.
It's certainly going to be a test of who's done their practice as we look to go double file now. Britty comes across, Babsy jumps upside with Buskovus and the other drivers getting into their positions. We are going double file a little bit earlier in the lap. As directed by the stewards earlier this week in an announcement, just so that it gives the drivers a bit more of a chance. They don't need to rush into the double file. And
I think it might be
into
need
the
to call a bit
positions, although
earlier
I think
because
there's
a
a lot of people rushing. I think they didn't
Yeah.
quite take into account the wet, a couple of the drivers. I don't think that's the steward's fault. But we'll come round. I think the stewards will certainly be looking at... Some of the drivers aren't even at the final corner yet. We're about to go green. It's going to be interesting as we see Britty... Oh, goodness, this is going to go interesting as we wait for the green. Britty, P1, Babsy side by side with him. And we go green here. Terrible start for King. Really good from Buskovus. Britt got a good one, but Bab was keen to it. He's got a good start in that Porsche. They're going side by side down to turn 1. I reckon, Britty's gone deep, and Bab's giving him a tap and giving us real push there, just a piece of his mind. I'll let the stewards have that one because I don't know how I feel about that one myself. Going about 4 wide down the back there. I don't recommend that. Oh, Bab just following Buskovus down to here. And Buskovus has done nice to get up into P2. Took advantage of that little bit of a tap that Britt gave on Bab just from missing that braking point. Probably by only about 5 metres into turn 1, but it can make all the difference here in the wet, of course. Sherry currently following Bub now through sector 2. And here they come up to the chicane. Hopefully no carnage has caused up here. Nothing huge has happened except car 45. That's Nicholson's round, the fast left-hander up the hill. So too sure what's gone on in there. But, through they come now. Otherwise, relatively unscathed, which is good. Hoping it stays that way. Coming around S's towards the fast right-hander. This is another vital section to get right if you want a good chance through here. Let's see. Nice use of the curb there from Spinazzi, who is up a position at the moment. And, there's a couple of drivers swapping positions. Alice K swapping around. I think K maybe has dropped back a little bit or was up and is now back again. So, so a couple of drivers dropping up and down the order. But a couple of movements. Nothing too huge at the moment. No wind affecting the weather, of course. But Britt leads lap 1.2. And he comes across the line in just a moment, maybe a bit more. We'll see what it is. And Bab will be there as well. So, yeah, 1.2. So, Delta staying relatively the same for most. This is a good position for Britain at this point.
Yep, very steady lap 1. We'll see if lap 2 can follow suit as Babby goes deep into turn 1 and is going to be under the threat from Bishop. And Spinazzi also getting wide on the AstroTurf. Going to be passed by Ryan King and the Bentley of Benjamin Piper as well. Costa right behind him. Not sure if he was really going for a move there on the McLaren of Ryan King there, but yeah, unfortunately, and, to be fair, going into turn 1 at speed, unlike lap 1, so braking points might not be too familiar so far, but probably will be after this lap. Bishop, Bishop very wanted to get to slide. Unfortunately, finds the wall as the curse of the cameraman. As unfortunately found Mr. Bishop. Maybe he's gone away with not too much damage visually, but it'll be interesting to see how much that's going to affect the Aston Martin. Definitely dented his pride a little bit.
Oh yes, definitely dented his pride and the front of the car. I think he'll be able to continue in the wet here. It doesn't look too huge, but of course ACC spectator view doesn't always show the full extent of the damage. As everybody just over compensating on the exit of the S's there. They really need to get the car across to the right as quickly as they can to try and make the straight line through the next left-hander as best as possible. Coming down to the third to last corner now. Not a huge amount of curb usage from drivers. I think we've seen the consequences of using the curves. You see Ryan King currently sitting P7. He had a shocker of a start, unfortunately, from a bit further up on the grid. He was around P5 thereabouts, so he's dropped back a couple of positions. Ben Piper has actually just gotten past Spinazzi, so that's a solid for him. Buskovus goes fastest, 52.0, so he's looking to maybe try and get somewhere early on Britt. He's gained 4 tenths on him this lap. Babs dropped back a little bit. Bub now, the deltas at the front are reasonably large, given that they are in the wet. A couple of drivers a bit further down. Most are within sort of half a second, and there's a Porsche.
That's K.
That's K. I don't like the look of that. I don't know if he's just locked it or if he's maybe been hit or missed a braking point. Not quite sure.
Yeah, definitely looks like he's either had contact with someone or maybe had to brake on the grass. He's gone. He's braked too late. And he does a good job to navigate between the two cars as Ellis and Yao there get a fair off right. And he probably wishing he went left to the Ferrari rather than right. Yes, unfortunately too deep on the brakes. Had us cop some damage as well, just for good luck, for extra measure. Oh dear, fortunate as he was running in good positions just outside the top 10. As Slade should get past his Aston Martin as Byrne comes back at him as he's going wide.
Yeah.
And unfortunately there's contact made and Byrne goes around on the Ferrari. And yeah, oh dear.
That's not Byrne's fault. I'm just going to put it out there. I don't think that's Byrne's fault. I think Slade's internet certainly played a factor in there. And I don't think they quite knew where each other were, so maybe a quick word from the stewards to say there that his internet's impacting on other drivers' races, but we'll see where that goes. Kumar at the moment, though, has made a great recovery so far from the back of the grid with the Polyband up into P18. Very nice of him. A couple of drivers burned off down. Stockton's already got a 15-second penalty for causing collision on that one. Wow, the stewards are not mucking around today, are they? That's a very quick penalty there. I think that was probably a clear-cut one. I don't think we quite saw that one, but Stockton was hit. And, Kumar comes in early. That's a bold call, if you ask me.
He is in the pack a little bit, and a different strategy call. Maybe we can get out into some clear air. Granted, we're carrying a lot more fuel, but dare say it doesn't make as much of a difference when it's wet. I like it. I like it from Kumar, especially. I like to box early sometimes, get in clear air, and if I know I've got the speed as well as Spinazzi here, stuck behind Benjamin Piper, obviously with Kumar boxing. It's a clear sign that the pit window has opened now at 53 minutes. So everyone's entitled to box. Everyone will probably be going for the half and half strategy. Definitely can take a tyre for 53 minutes if Kumar wants it. Well, they have to be honest. I'm sure he'll make a lot of transitions. 1-2-1 has had a moment as Stockton as again. I'm not too sure what's happened there. We look now at Kidman. Behind one of the Mustangs. Not too sure what happened here for the 35 car. Getting a little bit wide on the Astro.
Yep. Oh
dear. Seen that a few times.
At least ask the wall out on a date first. This is Stockton. So just wondering what's happened here up the hills. There's a really tough corner in the wet. I bet he goes wide and hits the AstroTurf. Oh, it wasn't even the AstroTurf. He's hitting the curb wrong. He's lit it up a bit quickly, I think, on the old throttle. And unfortunately, it spun him round. Thankfully, not in the wall, but not a good position. Oh, Britty, though, showing Busquets what he's made of. 51.8. That's a stonking lap in the wet for him. But, I mean, Busquets is there. He's not mucking around. He's going to be pushing as best he can to hunt down Mr. Brett. Bab, long way back, 3.1, but he's in a good gap. Costa, 15-second penalty for a collision on lap 1. So I think in the wet here, the incident's a bit more clear-cut. Ellis, oh my God, he is really trying to get up the backside of Yao at the moment. This is for P3 in class. At this point in time, Ellis is looking for the switchback. He broke early compared to Yao, but Yao was absolutely beautiful in the brakes. And coming through this corner, it's another nasty one. Hit too much to the curb, but Ellis has done it nicely. Yao's in a good spot. Price Davies just sitting in the background there, maybe. He's going to wait for something more, and Yao, a bit dodgy under brakes. Ellis taking out a whole lot of curb through there, a lot more slowly, admittedly, but a lot more curb, which can be a bit dangerous. So we'll see what happened. I'm being blamed for incidents in the chat. This is good. It's not even my fault.
Gets slanted in chat, not too surprising. If anything,
It's all part of it.
we saw you out there, RCI, coming for someone else, so you're gonna get slandered.
Oh, boo.
I thought I'd check out the RCI stream, get away from Bobsy, and you were there.
Yeah, and I was there. It's a free water game.
I always like John Dawson more.
Wow. It's not a free world here for Wesley
We go
Yao,
back
though.
like that.
Wow,
Ellis
pretty.
all over the back.
Oh!
Ambuscover's response with a 3/10 gain. Too short. Yes. Wesley's driving pretty well now, and he is still putting together his championship bid, leading Pro-Am class. He's 7 points over Hayden Marsh, who is fairly down the field, I believe. He did have a qualifying ban. But, doing well so far. Did have a little bit sketchy last few rounds, due to his own fault, and some not the case. Looking good for that Pro-Am. Spinazzi, surely you must be weighing up what he wants to do with strategy, because he's not getting past the Bentley so far for the 10 minutes of this race. Ruined the decision a little bit, as the Bentley is also being dropped by Ryan King, so Piper going well so far, but oh, that's a lot to cut. That was a serious cut. That was a rallycross cut. And, got away with it. Didn't get too perturbed in the Bentley. Probably may have gone track limit. I'm not too sure. You can never tell with the wet times, to be honest.
Yeah, certainly one thing to keep a watch out for is the track limits are a lot nastier in the wet. I mean, this is just a track in general. It's really not ideal for the track limits, but in the wet it makes it even worse. So hopefully we don't see anyone with drive-throughs, but I'm not going to put it past it. So, what happens here? Spinazzi's just sitting his own little bubble. He hasn't moved up and down from where he started. He did start P9. He's sat P9 at the moment. Piper's got a bit of a gap to King. Busquets is slowly closing in on Britt. Babs just in his own bubble. Bub now's got Jerry behind, but that's about it. So they might have a little bit of a fight out. But we'll see what happens. Slade's got me drive through.
Oh, but never mind. Sam Mascova's roaring past the McLaren, fighting into turn 1. Britt starts to come back at him under braking. Gets the inside line, but the crisscross. And Britt on the AstroTurf as well, unfortunately. Massively lost out to Sam Mascovas on the exit. Great job by those two.
Absolutely. Might chuck another look and...
What happened here?
I don't know. Let's just have a look. He really caught him. I don't know why. Britt must have had to slow down, or maybe he's just having a bit of an issue. But I mean, Busquets has made that one look easy, and oh, he's not made that look easy though. A bit of a slide, and it's going to allow Britty back into this one. And is he going to look for the dive? Sticks the nose out. Don't go further than the wet here, though, ladies and gentlemen. That is not a recommended overtaking point, especially in the wet. But Britt knows better. Maybe Britt pits early if he's worried about Busquets' pace. And might look just for some clean air to do some lapping. But I'm not 100% sure what exactly his plan is here. But Busquets is in the hot seat at the moment.
I think the issue for Britt, and probably why he lost the lead, is that the GTR is probably, it's easier to make its time. It doesn't require so much wrangling, whereas I think the McLaren is a little bit dicier in these conditions. Not to take anything away from both of the drivers. I think I'd rather be in a GTR for the race than the McLaren, to say the least. It just makes his time on the straights. You don't have to really wrangle it through all the corners like the way that Paul Britt, I think, has had to try and make the time up. And we'll see how he goes, see how he responds back. Probably, I can imagine he lost out massively on the straights due to just maybe getting a bad exit. We have seen a few McLarens get fairly held up when they get one wheel on the AstroTurfs and on the exit curbs.
Yeah, the AstroTurf is certainly some people's enemies this evening. Liam Kay, bit of damage on the front from going a little bit deep early on, or maybe a bit of a tap at turn 1, or maybe a completely separate incident. He's currently hunting down Lim for a top 15 spot at this point in time. And there could be a pit strategy involved here. I think he's catching it. It's quite a bright livery there from really nice and green and pearlescent. I like very much. No use of the curve on the inside there from Kay. That's a good decision. McLaren behind. That's Greco just dancing it around in the background. Coming up to the uphill left. Nicely done there. No drivers getting hugely out of control. Kay going for a tighter line up here while Lim doesn't know where the track is, and I think Kay's going to get him here because Lim's just, I think, gotten a little bit lost there, a bit slippery and gone off track. You can see Greco in the background really pushing those braking points to try and catch up here. So see how it plays out for him. Large use of the curb on the inside there. I tend to try and avoid them if possible, and they're all, whoa, Lim's very wide, and he might be in a bit of trouble, and he's got to drive through for track limits. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. My point proven about easy track limits.
That's hard. Unfortunately, just you don't go any quicker by going wide and stuff like that, and you just get a track limit warning just for good measure to make it even worse. It's lemon in the wound. Unfortunately, Stambas Covers does a 51.4 in the race. Really setting the pace is the GTR in the silver driver's hands. We'll see if, yeah, Brit's still holding on with 8 attempts, but not much more than that. Car 14, I think that's George Cook. I think he's had a come a cropper on the straight. The exit turn, the last corner. I'm not sure what's happened there. So Spinazzi is still stuck behind Viper. The M&M's McLaren on the back of Jared Ellis.
Did he light it up on the curb?
Probably, yep. Astro
Whoa, wrong. Yep. Oh, yeah.
And a counter steer.
Ooh.
Going away not too badly, to be honest, to have a moment like that.
That hit pretty hard, though, so I reckon you have a solid amount of damage. Good, probably 10-20 seconds of damage there. That hit quite hard, and also just slid hard into it. Spinazzi, though, still chasing down Piper. Piper's reasonably consistent in holding that gap to King. At the moment, King's got a big gap, though, to Bishop, who's in this little gaggle of cars with Sherry and Bub now as well. Babs in his own little bubble still. Brits falling back to Buskovus. That missing really showing its full potential here in the wet. It's only going to get drier from here. Not enough, obviously, to dry the track out or anything, but the medium rain is falling in the next 10 and 30 minutes. But so we'll probably see some times start to come fast. You can see the mirroring of a vague dry line starting to appear just with the cars driving around for the last almost 20 minutes. But it's not going to make a huge difference at this time. Buskovus still consistent in the 51s, and Brit's probably not too far off that either. Slade, though, got that drive through's a long way back in this grid. Actually back with Lim after the drive through that Lim served. So these two not in a good way. Just suffering a lot like his internet. It's giving me, my eyes are dying looking at that. Spinazzi, though, is there, and Greco is here for this one. K in the Porsche, not going to have the straight line speed. Someone's put a board in the middle of the track there. I don't know how they've done that, and Greco pulls it up nice, uses the curb, though, but not going to get, I don't think he's going to get the best exit. He does. Just eases onto the throttle slowly, gets the car gripped up on those wets. Down to turn 2 they come.
Not doing much, but you have to say, Limgate, while he did have that crash earlier on, still going well here in still P15. You know, granted he's got damage. He probably could have been a little bit higher up. He didn't make his mistake, but he's still P15. It's still a good day, I'd say. You know, you're still relatively in the fight. The cars are not that far up ahead, and he's still showing he's got decent pace out there. As speaking of decent pace, Andy Bishop now kind of getting onto the back of Zeri a little bit. Arguably, the Mustangs don't look too at home in the wet conditions. Like, while in qualifying, they were still able to produce a pretty respectable time. Don't look so good in the race in terms of drivability. I have heard that's you know, maybe one thing with the tower of power that you have doesn't really get down onto the track. It's a little bit wide from Zeri, but he's going to slingshot out on a good exit. So Bishop held a tighter line through the last corner. It'll be a tough one for Bishop to get past. He's showing all the good signs. It's very big improvement as well. And, you know, we know it's wet. It might be a little bit of an outlier round, but still great performance from Andy Bishop here.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom Kidden got a drive through before for track limits, and Jared Ellis is going in to serve his for the same thing. So 20 minutes and people have 3 warnings. That is that's not promising for the rest of the drivers for the rest of this race. Certainly don't like the way that's going to look, but most drivers that have a 15-second penalty as well. It's not going to help them either. Buskovus, consistent-ish enough gap to Britt, hasn't dropped too much. Byrne on the back of Lloyd, down to turn 1. Let's see if he sticks on the brakes. He does. Byrne, yeah, not going to get it done, but he did the right. Oh, there's a Ferrari off in the back. Has that stopped it? That's not the position that I'd want to be in.
No, he's gone some.
Yeah, he's gone, yeah. Nicholson in the background, though. Just maybe looking for a mistake. And, yeah, could have been Nicholson in the background potentially as well. Just doing a nice job overall, Byrne. He's in a good spot. He's in the points here to get another position. Oh, a little bit of a slide there from Lloyd, who's currently leading the Own class. Byrne still sitting here. He's got Nicholson behind. I don't know how much of a threat that Nicholson will be at this point. Coming up to probably a point in the race where you could look to jump into the pits. Oh, Nicholson going a little bit deep in the second part of the chicane there. And Buskovas was just doing consistent. The 51s, he goes about half a tenth faster than his previous fastest. Byrne goes wide. And Buskovas is a 51.405. So good luck to him. Stockton is now in on this one. But he's got a 15-second penalty, so that's going to put him right back down in the lower parts of the field of drivers, which is not an ideal one. Oh, that, don't go down the inside like that.
Oh, goodness, why do you still have this camera that's blocked by an advertising board?
That's a terrible camera angle. I was very concerned for Nicholson there. That was a huge dive from Stockton. Whether he just missed the braking point could be another thing.
Yes, I've always hated that camera. Like, it's been in the game since game. Goodness, like, if it's broke, we don't fix anything. But yes, I think Stockton just a little bit late, maybe caught out by the direction change from the Lamborghini. I was going to say Lloyd has been doing a good job. I think he's our highest place of the ones who got a qualifying ban. Going well in the Lexus. Can't say it's probably the car I'd pick for these conditions, but doing well so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicholson just dropped back a little bit after that scare with Stockton. And Marsh, drive through.
Burden's not here.
Burden's not here. That is concerning. Here's Lloyd again with Byrne. That move I think Byrne was looking for. It was.
Ducks out, brakes late.
Yeah.
Braking not unlocked. Oh, the Lamborghini.
Oh, what was that? Oh, my goodness. Oh, pretty low. Oh, I don't even know. Wow, rightio. That was a lot to process. That was quite a large hit, but Britt takes another hit to Buskovas, takes back fastest lap 51.3. Slowly pulling back in is Britt, but he is coming up to the point where he could look for pit stop, so maybe he could even look to go a little bit longer to start with, and let Buskovas. But you don't want to let Buskovas have warmer wets in you. It's going to be an interesting mind battle here. Costa, yeah, both in the pits. Taking their mandatories, going for around a half and half type strategy. Spinazzi still following nicely behind Piper. Greco, though, following nicely behind Price Davies, who was looking at a battle earlier on in this race, but it's just sort of stuck in his own bubble in the clean air doing his laps, and Greco's just caught up. And he's got K behind as well, so anything could happen here, especially in the wet and with the strategies that some people are using. These positions are not hugely definitive, other than maybe you look maybe at that top 5 or 6, and if there's any mistakes. Greco's a long way. That's a massive cut of the curve there. He's up 16 positions from the start. So that's a really good effort from him as well. I think he maybe had a quali ban, judging by how far back he started.
Yeah, so he's actually the highest of all of our barn runners. As Price Davis gets a little bit of a moment on the exit, and Greco says, "Thank you very much, yoink." That's sometimes all you gotta do. You just gotta stick behind and wait for a mistake in these conditions. Just, oh my God, stand, stop it! We get it, you quick. But you're in a GTR, so you get my seal of approval.
Oh, that was I just saw that there was a stop go for a driver who had come out of the pit lane. I just saw my eyes catch onto it, but couldn't quite get on it. Here's Slade on
Nick. Slade was stopped at turn 1, and then this is going to be the reason why. It goes to the outside of Nicholson, getting nearly on the grass on the exit. Does the crisscross and just drives into the back of him. Enough said.
Yeah.
No, Nicholson's not been perfect, but didn't deserve that one.
No, absolutely not. Piper, though, it must have been maybe a mistake from Yeah, mistake from King because Piper's back here. Don't go too wide up here. I don't recommend that.
Do it.
Maybe a crisscross switchback, something like that. King getting really on that AstroTurf. That's not recommended. Spinazzi, I think he's going to try and take full advantage of Piper trying to go for a switchback, and maybe he wants that position to have a go at King first. Going to stick the nose out, should stick him behind in the chicane here. We see a car around car 7 is round. Driver coming to the wet conditions.
He's quite far down the field, as Costa looks like he's got going again, so he'll be clear. Bentley goes pretty well in these conditions, I have to say. Like when I drove it last season at the Red Bull Ring, granted, very different circuit, but goes well in the wet. I have to say Bentley's a nice little package, especially with the current BOP. Kind of wish I drove it this season over the McLaren, to be honest.
It's an interesting one. King, just with that pressure that was being put on, maybe he's using it to his advantage and trying to use that to put it into his pace and run away. If I was Spinazzi, though, I'd actually look to pit because
I'm really surprised
he held up. Yeah, I was going to say I'm a bit shocked by that. Or even if I was Piper, I'd maybe look to pit. If I was King, I would just stay where I am. He's bringing Piper along with him, which is bringing Spinazzi along. So he's just allowing those two to fight each other, which will lose them some time to him. So don't blame him for not coming in, but Spinazzi or Piper, I'd have thought I'd have seen one of them in sooner rather than later, but you never know.
Yeah. And to be honest, he maybe feel comfortable here, where he doesn't, he knows he's got the championship a little bit, with half a bow tie on it, and he's happy to sit here just in his own gap. I don't feel like that's what a real racer would do. Like Spinazzi, I feel like he would just always want to get ahead of the guy ahead. And Sean Bubnow Sean Bubnow had quite a unnerving turn 1 as he braked, I think, later than everyone, and kind of nearly went into someone else at turn 1. Nicholson gets a drive-through for causing a collision on lap 12, unfortunately. Might not be the only one, seeing what happened to him a lap later. But yes, Bubnow on the back of Babby, both in the share similar circles, the Kovac's crew and whatnot. Bubnow going pretty well. As Britty's right on the back of Buscover's. Not sure, maybe Stan has had a moment. To be fair, he hasn't really been able to drop Brit. They've kind of been swapping their fastest laps, but it's not over. Definitely not over until the flag drops.
No, absolutely. And if I was Buscover, I'd look to pit. You don't want to give Brit that slipstream, but at the same time, you don't want to let Brit have the clean air. He's not in a particularly good situation. Maybe Brit might make the decision for him and pit maybe this coming lap. They'll be coming up to almost exactly 30 minutes left by the end of this lap. Maybe something can be done from one of these drivers to just alternate the strategy if Brit's going to go long, or maybe the other one might react to the other. Greco comes into the pit. Lim's got a drive-through penalty, I suspect, for track limits, since he doesn't look like he's pitted. A couple of drivers really copping some harsh penalties. Track limit warnings.
I tell you what, you're copying some harsh words in the chat room, I will say. I'm not sure if you're going to stand for that. As Capiel Slade gets a penalty for his misdemeanor, I believe, with Nicholson. As we continue to follow Brit and Buscovas, it's a little bit ebbing and flowing between who makes a mistake here and there. And one mistake can swap around the order between the two. GTR able to really pull away even in these S's parts. I think the McLaren, while it would be more suited to some of these corners, its inability to kind of ride the curbs as well as the GTR does. It's kind of what's holding it back a little bit. To be honest, let's have a look. As I was saying, the GTR kind of doesn't really need to maximize all the edges of the track to make up its time, but as we hear the standings here, wonderfully provided by our cameraman Brent Sykes. The Pro class is headed up by Matthew Spinazzi in car 111 for 547 points plus a slap to stand in the 50s. Shocker. Chris Taylor, obviously still second. I believe Chris has unfortunately not been able to race for the remainder of the season, so he will be, maybe he can still retain second. And to be honest, Tom McDonald, we don't even know where. I think he hasn't shown up for the last couple of rounds either. Not here, wasn't here last week, so it is Benazes to lose, but in Silvercross headed up by Zeri on 431 points, 48 points ahead of Stambus Kovas. That might be changing after tonight if things go well for the GTR driver. Harsh Kumar, obviously a little bit further down the field in this race, but is still third in silver class, 34 points behind Stan as well. Benjamin Piper, the Bentley driver, just behind him, followed by Aiden Squires, I believe is not here tonight, either fifth in the silver standings. Wesley Yao from Porsche heads up Pro-Am, 205 points, 7 ahead of Hayden Marsh. Should stand to gain quite a bit given the state in this, given both cars' positions in this race. Ryan King in third, followed by James Atkinson and George Sakanius as well. Ryan King stands to massively gain, I think, from this. They might take Pro-Am lead given where he is on track tonight, so one to watch for next week. Paul Cranich leads up Am class, followed by Phil McCulley, and then Nigel Lamanen back then, and David Marsh and Ben Whitman to round out the Am class. Still pretty close between Paul and Phil McCulley.
Absolutely. So, Britty and Buskovus yet to pit. Maybe they're waiting for the other person to blink. Price Davies, Spenceley, both in the pit. Stockton as well. Lim in the pits, taking their mandatory pit stops, going a little bit deep out of the pit lane. Keep in mind that, people, because it's a bit of a nasty one if you're going a little bit fast and you don't go too deep into turn one. Yellow flags out.
992 is Wesley Yao.
Yao. Ooh, that's not good done. I think maybe he's just had a spin. Doesn't look like it's damaged. Price Davies just going past Yao, letting him go. Those tyres probably going to be a little bit roasty toasty. So we can see what's happened here. Down exit of turn one looks fine. Down into turn two, wonder what's happened here. Just too deep and looped it. Yeah, looped it. Oh, he's had the Porsche snap as well. Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah, it looked like the rear was just wasn't comfortable with the speed he carried on the way in. Maybe he caught the brake, a little bit of rear braking, but then with a big old slide, then caught it with a big old tank slapper as well. But not too bad. Could have been worse. Didn't find the wall. Probably lost a few positions, granted, but still in it. Maybe come in, change those tyres, I think, as he's done as a result. I'm not sure if he already boxed before that said.
Yes, we've done that. Byrne comes into the pits now. Bishop having a solid race. He's in a good little bubble here. He's got Jerry not too far ahead. You can see him on the edge of the screen to a couple of these corners.
Bub now has dropped behind Zeri and Bishop.
Yeah, Bub now had a bit of a dead moment, unfortunately. So he's dropped way back.
That's what happens with upgrades, people.
Yeah, that's right. That's what happens. They spin. That's what happens. And,
I hope you have good luck in the next race you have, Rich Hobbs.
I don't even know when the next race is that I'm going to do, to be honest with you. I could not tell you. Oh, Britty finally blinks and comes into the pits. That's fair decision. Over the halfway mark, and Bab follows suit. And Burns just coming out of the pits. So we'll see what kind of an advantage this gives Britt. Coming with the warmer tyres compared to Buskovus, but I think Buskovus will be more than aware that Britty did come into the pit, so we'll see if that makes his mind up as whether he pits this lap or not, or has to go another lap or so to really alternate the strategy a bit.
I was trying to tell there. It's hard to tell with the gantries, but I feel like the gantry is usually meant to, the little thing that overhangs it was meant to sit like kind of in the middle of the car. I'm wondering if the Brit there might have slightly overshot. Ooh, his stem has a little bit of a wobble coming into turn 5. Gets aware of it. Might be feeling the heat a little bit. You know, he took the lead. And to be honest, you know, some drivers handle the pressure a little bit better when they're in the prime position. I'm not one of them, definitely.
Yeah.
I get the shakes quite badly, and you know, do a classic bottle job whenever I get remotely towards the podium places. It's a skill all in its own. being able to
Don't
soak up the
shake
pressure.
and you'll be fine.
Yeah, just
So
just drive.
solves all problems, doesn't it?
Yeah, just just smooth brain it. Ooh, it's Sean Bub now. Looks like he's wearing a few scars. Probably the aforementioned moment he had. That's significant enough that it's showing up on the spectator cam, so he must be bad.
Absolutely. Going up to the second to last corner. Russell stayed out against an interesting one. Maybe he's going to go and try and alternate his strategies. Bubner going to come to the pits. No, he sticks there as well. Maybe a longer stint for him. Still top 6 yet to pit provisionally. Slade still needs to pit. Greco just in his own little bubble again, coming up to car that I believe he's not fighting with.
Yeah,
So, Kidman who's yet.
is.
So it's okay.
Yeah. We'll still want him out of the way ASAP, but he's not entitled to jump out the way. He's the sort of dark blue and green Aston McLaren. It's all the same. Totally same cars.
Oh, yeah, definitely not completely different at all. Definitely not different abilities in the wet. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, one was OP, one is OP.
Well,
No.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Wonder maybe if Kidman's going to pit here and get out of Greco's way. I think Greco's certainly hoping for that. Bishop about to come out of the pits. Piper also in the pits, but not too far off jumping out, either serving the mandatory pit stop. Let's see, track still obviously not really drying out much. The range is decreasing. Greco just probably trying to signal by putting the nose out that he wants to get past Kidman. Hopefully Kidman will jumps into the pits for his sake, and does. And that's where Greco was really hoping for that, and he gets his wish through the final corner now. Got a good gap, got some clean air to really make up some time. And Ryan King's actually lost out to Piper here. That's going to be a rough one for him to take, but he's right on the back of him. Maybe he'll look for a move up the inside down turn 2 if he's got the courage, and doesn't. Certainly don't blame him. It's a rough braking zone down a hill on a slight angle. Not cambered much, but just enough to make it a bit more difficult in the wet. Coming up to the uphill section to the fast left-hander. Let's see how it plays out. That's a lot of curb from Piper. Holy moly. I don't know if that would have been a tractor not warning or not, but it certainly looked like it. King got Nicholson behind. He's a lapped car, so not really going to give any threat in this point.
Really hard to say whether the newer wets are going to be quicker at this stage. They could well be if you've completely destroyed your old wets, to say the least. But you still saw very quick times when people, especially as the fuel was burning up. Obviously, granted you're taking fresh wets here, but also you're taking probably another 30 minutes of fuel based on when you box. So arguably, it's not always necessarily the undercut is going to work out, which I think is playing into the minds, obviously, of Stambasco versus Eric and Bub now, and also Spinazzi as well. Spinazzi always fueled to go longer a little bit. I think generally in this race, it's a pretty safe bet to go a little bit longer on fuel. We shall see. I'll be interested to see where Zderi comes out relative to Bishop, because they were pretty close. Slade here on the back of Bishop, obviously. Hopefully doesn't interrupt the Aston Martin's pace. But track 299 is Lloyd. Has come a cropper at turn 1, just to get going again. Not great news for the Lexus driver. Piper cars past, and we'll have Ryan King as the next car behind him. Is it the car ahead or car behind he's got to worry about? He brakes late on the brakes, he knows he's going way too long, and he goes right on. It's not stopping. And that's that car won't be moving again if it was real life, put it that way.
No, it would certainly be in the wall, and it would be very broken. Slade here going really long in this first stint. I suspect we'll see him hit very soon up to the hill. Fast left-hander again, another tricky one. Yeah, I'll make that look easy. He's trying to recover from the incidents he's had earlier in this race.
Now box.
Yeah, he comes in, so he'll drop back a fair way down the field. Probably have to repair maybe some of the damage he's got.
Might put him into the clutch as a Piper, I'm guessing. It depends on how much damage it is, because to be honest, they weren't that far separated, most of the top 10. They were only a few seconds here and there, and you know, if you got to repair about 15 seconds of damage, that's kind of, unfortunately. Paul Brett does a 50.8. Maybe that might be a sign to Stan Boscobas to maybe come into the box sooner rather than later. We shall see. It's obviously comfortable to keep going, and I'm not sure if Sean's repaired that damage, but we won't trust the spectator bug.
That stop wasn't going to go. No, he didn't. And that's certainly Boscobas needs to look at coming in, because I know the track is certainly drying with the lesser medium rain, helping the times a little bit. He's still going. Oh, he made a last-minute decision. Ooh, that was certainly a do I not, and he comes in. I think that's probably the right decision, but
Paul Brett coming up to the chicane.
Too late. Yeah, I've got a really might be too late.
Hasn't practiced that in pit entry because he stopped way early. It's, you know, better to stop earlier than later, but that'll be a second lost, I think, there at least for Stan. We shall see. Still trundling down the lane as a Stan, so he hasn't started his 30 seconds of mandatory tyre changing yet, while the 37 car comes through turn 11 and it's got just the last sector to cover. Looks like car 29 has finally got on its jacks. The 30 seconds starts. We'll see how far down the pit lane he is as well. It'll all be relative, but this is looking good for Paul Britt at this rate, I have to say. Coming now around turn 13, and then finally the last corner of turn 14 should be going good. Really on pace is Mr. Britt right now. Car 29 is rolling again.
I think
where is he?
Boscobas, I reckon Britty's going to have this.
He's at the end of the line, and it's gone.
Oh, that is the lead running away from Boscobas now. He's going. Oh, and he's gone across the pit lane line early. So I hope someone saw that, because I know I did.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we're doing with the rules on that one, because we definitely don't enforce the entry line sometimes with some tracks.
Yeah, it's very track dependent, of course, depending on how nice it is. But Boscobas, cold, wet tyres. He's certainly going to be in trouble. He needs to get them.
It's only about
the
2 seconds. That could have been lost here and there. Maybe a few laps earlier. Don't get the pit entry as wrong. That's all it could have been. He's got his work to do. As the GTR driver, if he wants to retake the lead.
King currently provisionally around still 7th where he was. So he's going to be very happy with that. He's had a very solid race currently. P2 in the Pro-Am class with the man in lead, Bishop. The Pro-Am class, he's had a stellar race, had a really good performance in quali, and certainly showed his potential in his last few races. Oh, that's very wide from Price Davies. It's probably a track that Warning and Yao was more than privy to it. Maybe something can be done here for Yao if the McLaren struggles through this next part of the sector. I don't know for sure. Oh, but he's just avoided the curb through that second part, which has really lost him a little bit of time. And Kay is just sneaking up on this one as well after trying to recover from a couple of earlier incidents. He's up in the top 15 there, which is a very solid effort. 15, just over 15 minutes to go here now. What can Wesley Yao do with Price Davies? I'm not quite sure. He's certainly looking to push. And Price Davies, I think, as well, is trying to push. Kumar is also in the background as well, so he's made his way up from a lot further down the grid after the quali ban he got this week. So some really good between these guys. He's up 8 places, so that's a really solid effort. 10 to the final corner. Yao going wide to try and get the title line for the final corner. And through he comes now. He's just in the slipstream, but we're not going to see much given the spray that's coming off the cars. Have the windscreen wipers going to try and counteract that. But 15 minutes to go. Most people are pitted just the top 2 at the moment who haven't bring Britt back into the lead. He's 2.5 ahead of Boscobas. And Babsy's just in his own little bubble still, so he's got a good chance of P3.
His own bubble kind of was a little bit under pressure from Bub now. Whether or not Bub now fixed his damage or not, he fell down by quite a bit, obviously, with the spin. And I don't think he fixed the damage. Unfortunately for him, sitting behind, not sitting behind Piper, but very close between them, only half a second. So on the Bentley driver to gain the position. He's showing good form, has Benjamin Piper. We should see where the two Ford drivers, teammates, filter out in the end of all this. Much advantage to really going long, because obviously the mandatory tyre stop dictates how it doesn't puts away any benefit of taking less fuel. The pit stop, so it's not too much of an advantage. Just whether they feel comfortable to go that long, but definitely had good pace at the start of the race to carrying the heavier fuel, to say the least. Seeing Benjamin Piper just gradually sticking on the back of this McLaren. I'm sure the front can't be helping too much on that McLaren if it is subsequently damaged, like we're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. Piper, though, who is looking on the back of Bub now. He's looking for a P7 at the moment, but Bub now's been keeping consistent after the earlier incident that he had that put him outside the top 5, which is unfortunate for him. Still got 30 minutes though. Piper, he's just going to stick in the slipstream, I think, for a bit. Not going to put maybe too huge pressure on at this point. Doesn't want to use too much of his tyres. Maybe Bubner could put on something here if he just uses a bit more of his earlier now and just pulls away just enough a gap to get him out of that range of putting a bit of that pressure on, sticking the nose out, things like that. And there we go. Spinazzi, I just saw him the corner of my eye come into the pits, so only Jerry is left now. He's going really long. I don't think it's going to be hugely long in his final stint. Whether that's going to have made a huge difference of where he ends up in the final field, I'm not too sure, but an interesting strategy certainly for him.
Stan hasn't really had the pace to catch up to Mr. Britt. The gap hopping around 3 seconds right now, so it might be ruining his earlier decisions. Still a great result for Stan Boskovic, and definitely looking to take P1 in silver class. Fastest lap though for Paul Britt, 50.5. Definitely showing, maybe he's a little bit reformed in the second stint. Maybe had the pressures slightly wrong for race 1. Oh, it's Hashkama with a lot of rear damage and front damage. It's all damage. It's in the fence. It's been in the fence. It's got to go back in the garage, to say the least. Surely, the car doesn't look like it wants to go straight, so I'm not sure what's happened here to Kamar. He's still in the same sort of relatively behind the two Porsches that he was catching before, so I'm not too sure what's happened to the 117 driver, but not be helping anything in his this race and the championship.
Absolutely, yeah. Needs to do something here. He's got Chrome drivers all around him, and he needs to really make his mark. Jerry finally comes into the pits with just over 11 minutes left here, so it's a bold call for me to have done that, but I'm not going to about someone who maybe he's pulled out the best strategy. He's going to be up many positions from where he was, but it's certainly an alternative to say the least. And it's Benazzo now, where he's dropped away back. Maybe has had a bit of an incident. That's where you want to be. This is Jared Ellis head with blue flag, so hopefully gets out of the way of these drivers relatively soon, because he probably doesn't want to this battle with cars. And he does get out of the way to Bertolas. It's a good decision. Down to turn 12. And blue flag, Spinazzi now. Let's see. Where's Jerry going to come out in the grand scheme of things? I think he's going to come out ahead of these cars. So these guys fighting for that position.
Yeah, easily. Will be behind Michael Babb. But, yeah. That is, don't think that is Bishop that's coming. No, that is Bishop in the Aston Martin. Pulls to the outside, tries to hold it around the outside, but wasn't able to get it really done. And Zeri retains what will be P4. It's Spinazzi all over the back of the McLaren. I was a little bit worried when we were watching the McLaren above now and Pipo, because they did have Ellis and Costa, I believe, up ahead of them. And, obviously not too sure what happened to Piper and all of that, whether he just had his own little mistake, and it's definitely allowed Spinazzi to slot in and now be the one to pressure Bub now. We'll see how they respond. Spinazzi been on a great run of form, but then Bub now, they believe they won Imola as well with his team in the Aston Martin, not the McLaren. Lucas Keys and Chris Curley. Benjamin Piper obviously won the last race 2 at Paul Ricard. So we've all got winners here and there and everywhere in different forms and different guises.
Absolutely, we've got a lot of experienced drivers on the grid, some new drivers as well coming up, which is great to see from the Academy Series. So good, a good mix of drivers overall. The experienced ones being able to show the Academy Series drivers that are coming up how it's done in the Sprint Series and how things are played out on the track. So certainly a good bunch of drivers. Bishop though just lost out to Jerry, so he's going to try and push. He's got 8 minutes to do it, which is enough time. It's only around, they've got about 4 or 5 laps, so certainly can be all to play for here. If Bishop could just keep within the slipstream of Jerry, he's going to be a real threat here. No threat for them. No chance of them with a podium, as Bab is almost basically 5 seconds ahead, so it's been an unfortunate one for them. They've both driven very well, but no matter the positions they finish, these two, if it's 4th or 5th, they certainly deserve a cracking race.
Absolutely. Andy Bishop has driven very well, barring the little moment where he had a couple of corners ahead from where he is now in the early part of the race, whether it was just a bit of the curse of the cameraman. Paul Kranich now comes into the box, our AM leader. I'm sure he will stay ahead of Mr. Winton for the AM honours this race. Going well in the M&M yellow Ferrari, boxing right towards the end as possible, as Mr. Kranich likes to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul loves to take that very alternative strategy. You always think there's an alternative strategy, and then Paul always outdoes you again. And certainly, give him a few positions, I reckon. He won't be all at the back. And Yao, he just got Kate following nicely. Price Davies really holding on here. He's got quite a gap to hold on to as well to be the top 10 position. So he just basically needs to do the best he can to fight back as Britt goes even faster, a 50.4. He is absolutely relishing the drying out track. It's obviously still going to stay wet for the rest of this race, but certainly drying out enough with the cars going around consistently, which is good for his pace, as you saw there. He's got a 5-second gap to Buskovitz, so I think that's hurt Buskovitz. Yeah, that's wide. K comes through. That's the easy position that he wanted. He was looking for that, and he just kept it nicely done for him. Now he's got Price Davies in his sight for a P11, as we see Spinazzi down the inside of Bub now, and I think he's going to have this one unless Bub now gets a better exit. He does. Spinazzi couldn't quite get the power down, and Piper will be probably allowed back into this one. King's not too far behind, so there could be a 4-car battle here if they continue this way. Some larger gaps. They've got a 9-second gap to Bishop in front for a quick look again. Spinazzi, bit of the slipstream. Top speed of the Mustang's good, sticks the nose out. Bub now was more than privy to the move coming and just let him have the room. Was probably a little bit generous, even though it is the wet. And Bub now focused on the exit, and he absolutely nailed that. So very solid effort from Spinazzi to try and put a move in, but Bub now used his experience and just planted the throttle down nicely on the exit there.
Yeah, good driving there from Bub now. And Spinazzi, he wasn't really, he was kind of coming from a little bit back still, even if he did have the run. and that shows you the case where you don't have to completely hop out of the way if the car sends the nose up the inside. And Bob now holds its outside line and gets ultimately the better exit, because he usually will have the car straightened up first before the Mustang, and it's the key to getting the power down. You gotta have the steering wheel straight. Doesn't really like to kick out when it's still turning. I have to feel for Stan Boscovas, because I feel like if he boxed accordingly and retained track position, I think he could have maybe kept Britt behind. Granted, I think it still would have been possible given the pace that Britt has been showing in the second half, because it's not, not saying it's easy to go quickly, but you can't necessarily do that when you're behind a car in the spray, especially with that car. With the GTI, it has different ways of going quickly here. It takes different lines, different braking zones. It can afford to, arguably miss the apex in some ways, and it can still power out and make a decent amount of time on the short little burst of acceleration. So I think a little bit of a learning experience for Stan, but he should not be disheartened in any way, and he's been on a really good run of form lately. 2 P3s at Paul Ricard, definitely looking to take silver honours. Even the championship lead in silver class, being based on where the rest are finishing. Granted, Zeri still in P4, so probably won't get ahead of Zeri, but will close the gap, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good race. As you said from Boscovas, a very good race here for Spinazzi as well, who's putting the pressure on Bub now very quickly. Jared Ellis gets a 5-second penalty for a collision only 3 laps ago. Only a minor one though, given that it's a 5-second penalty. But Piper as well has had a good race, just kept it consistent. Oh, a bit wide for Spinazzi though. The wets track really starting to take its toll, and it is a tiring exercise driving on a very, I wouldn't say 100% wet track, but it's very wet out there, and it's very tiring to have try and keep consistent and keep your braking points right, and make sure you're hitting your right throttle inputs and things like that. Jerry takes fastest lap off Britt though, 50.445, so it's only a couple of hundredths you're talking there between Britty and Jerry for that fastest lap as we start.
Just 2 seconds away from Babby as well.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the incident for Ellis. The 5 seconds that he got. He went deep.
It's Costa behind him.
Rejoin. Yeah. Not sure what's
fair in game. Does he move across? Oh, I think he does.
Oh, he gave him a bit of a tap. Yeah, possibly a bit of a move across under braking and pushing a driver off track. So that's not an ideal situation to be put in, but down to turn 2. Here comes Paul Kranich. He was actually chasing down. Oh, and Paul Kranich got a little bit caught out there too. And here comes Allison Lloyd's got to drive through. Kranich just letting driver through, knowing it's not his fight. And very solid decision. Nicholson, unfortunately, has had a bit of a rough race. He's going to get a position back off Lloyd here, since he's got to just set a drive through for track limits. So a few of those, which isn't ideal for the drivers, but not too many laps left here anyway, as Lloyd does come into the pits. As Nicholson will have the lovely clean air. But that's going to make probably too huge of a difference to his finishing position, given the fact that he's a fair chunk away. Here is Paul Britt. We haven't seen too much of him in this second stint of his, because he's just been so consistent. He's been pulling away very nicely from Boscovas, almost 6 seconds in the last sector. So he comes across the line for the final lap here. He's just going to cruise it home for the win here at Hungary in the wet. Certainly been a solid one. Not good.
1 minute to go.
Yeah, that's always a rough thing.
Stings. Oh, I was gonna say, Paul Britt. I can imagine him vying to get that fastest lap back. How dare it be taken off him or Stan Boscovas as Zeri shows his claim, but yeah, Spinazzi got a really good run, and in the draft now of the McLaren, goes left, goes right, jinx it, and got the inside line for turn 1, both side by side. There's going to be deja vu. He's going to be a little bit up on the curb. The car is ahead, but a good exit from the McLaren as well. Above now is still side by side, nose to nose, unnecessary contact coming into the hairpin of turn 2. Bub now retains the inside line. Might looking to try and force out Spinazzi, but Spinazzi with a good exit as well. It's going to be an inside line. Oh, contact again. That was a bit more understandable. But Piper now got to come round. Now it's going to be 3 wide. Piper might come out on top. He is ahead into turn 4, and he's going to get both positions as a result. While Bub now gets to the back ahead of Spinazzi. Oh my goodness gracious!
Wow, that was tough. I think
this is the last lap as well.
I think the stewards will ask Bub now to hand that one back. He took that one off track, so I think we'll ask him to hand that one back. But yeah, that was a lot of bumping and shoving between Bub now and Spinazzi. But Piper is the one who comes out on top, and Jerry, so close. He's looking for a late move on Bab. He wants that P3, and he does deserve it.
Lock.
Yeah, he does deserve it, but Babsy has had a cracking run. He started P2, so any position loss. He's still on the podium. And Britt comes and wins here at Hungary. A very great effort from him. Buskovus, solid again effort from him. Takes P2. This is very close here for P3. Bab's going to take it though. Jerry, what an effort from these two drivers. Bab just kept consistent, takes the P3, well deserved. Bishop, what a race from him, takes the chrome and a top 5 finish for him. That is absolutely class from him. And Piper will come out on top after all of that. And King managed to get through there. How did that happen? Where did that come from?
Not too sure where King got through.
Wow.
That, to be honest.
Yeah, okay. Yes, that's right. King got through after the going the 3 wide. Price Davies comes across the line just outside the top 10 by a margin. And Spinazzi gets a penalty just at the end there. Maybe that was for the incident with Bub now. The stewards might see it a little bit differently to the first contact. Yeah, absolutely.
10 seconds.
And, 10. That's a big call. Kay gets that 30 second for not serving that drive through. Spenceley is going to come round and finish in P16 and burn after a rough race. There you go. I don't think it's meant to be that one. Don't worry about that one. Don't ignore that. No, don't worry about that. That's not very true. Nicholson, again, another rough race for this driver, but he's going to come across the line. P25. Overall, we've got just the one driver burden enough to cross the line for P17. So a good race overall. Britt comes out on top. Boscovus, he tried his hardest, but I think he's off his pit strategy being a little bit too alternative, really. Unfortunately, put him out of the fight. Those colder tyres later on in the race. And unfortunately, that's put him out of the running. And we are done here. So we'll have a quick look at the standings, Cam.
Absolutely. Great little battle towards the end. I think, some of the contact was maybe a bit unnecessary. And there's a little bit of argy-bargy, to say the least. But Bishop, Piper and King, I didn't even clock when King slivered through and got past those two. And kudos to him if he did, as he did as well. But we'll run through the positions here. Obviously, overall headed up by Paul Britt, followed by Stan Buscovas and Michael Babb. Silver class headed up by the aforementioned Stan Buscovas. Great drive overall from him as well. And Babby as well, obviously silver class. And Zeri taking out the fastest lap to dethrone the top 2. Pro-Am headed up by Bishop. Great drive from him. What was it, P5 he got? Excellent stuff. Followed by Ranking, equally just as excellent as well. Great drive, top 10. Price Davis apparently is the second race he's done in sprints, so that's a very good job. I think he was around that P10 position. And for AM class will be headed up by Ben Winton in the Porsche, Paul Cranage, and Lloyd in the Lexus.
Yeah, absolutely. So, unfortunately, Cam, that brings us to the end of Split Yellow here. We're going to take a quick little break as we get prepared for Split Green. Any final thoughts?
No final thoughts. It was pretty good. It was pretty clean for the most part for wet Hungaroring, but shout out to Bishop as well for my driver of the day. Great. But there was a lot of contenders out there. A lot of great driving, especially the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great driving. So we're going to take a quick break here at Octane Online Racing for the Simrigs Sprint Series. It's a goodbye from Cam and a goodbye from me, and you'll be joined shortly by JP Sneakers and Alexis Bowen to take you here for Split Green.
Bye.
Welcome back to the Octane Online Racing Simrigs Sprint Series here, round 6 at the Hungaroring for Split Green. My name is Alexis Bowen, and joining me in the comms box tonight is John Pierre Sneakers. How are you, Peach?
Good evening, Alexis. I am very, very well and very excited for some wet racing at Hungaroring, one of my favorite tracks in ACC. And some of my favorite conditions. Just noticed my name is spelled incorrectly, that's quite offensive. But no, really looking forward to some good racing here, and Split Green is such a competitive split as well. Quite a lot of very fast, fairly closely matched pro drivers. I reckon we will see a good quali battle and then hopefully a very entertaining race as well.
Yeah, certainly. The wet weather always produces some excitement, especially on a track like this. I very much agree with your statement of Hungaroring being a very, very good track in this game, as we watch the Darrell Lee livery of Benjamin Hignett following on the livery that he ran last time out at Paul Ricard for the chocolate round that we had.
Yeah, some really beautiful liveries shown last week. Hopefully a little bit more of them show up this week. I know a couple of people had some complications, so hopefully more of them show up and we can get a look at it. I don't know what Darrell Lee is. I've never seen those. They're available here, but they look interesting and the livery looks nice.
Yeah, it's a Sterling chocolate. There's a lot of different things that they do. It's quite expensive, but tasty. As we watch Benjamin Hignett dive into turn 1 hairpin, very, very tricky to get your breaking point right, especially in these sorts of conditions. He does pretty well. Ferrari handling the conditions nicely as we'd expect it to. Now, riding down towards turn 2, another tricky hairpin. Can run a little bit of a wider line, get the later apex. Track is a bit notorious for being sort of akin to a go-kart track in a way, where wide lines can produce some good results, especially when you get into the Formula cars. Now, the tricky turn 4, crucial not to run too wide here, is very, very strict on track limits, but he stays well off the curve. Can't say the same for the Mustang behind. I think that might be Brad Cook, who's also on an invalid lap now, so he'll need to go again. Continue watching on with Benjamin Hignett as he runs through the chicane. He gets a little bit of the curve on the exit of turn 7. Now, turn 8, turn 9, through the S's. Always going to be tricky through here. Gets the car turned onto the curb. You're going to be careful with the traction. Gets quite loose, but may just hold it together. He'd probably lose a fair bit of time through the middle part of the S's, but he's come out the other side cleanly. Now, final sector coming up here into turn 12. 90-degree right-hander. Gets on the curb on the inside and on the outside. Keeps the foot to the floor. TC5 should give him enough grip going through these heavily grip-limited, long sweeping corners. Now, final one here at turn 14. Gets very, very wide, almost a little too wide. It does get the later apex, but he'll want to be pushing more on future laps. He gets a banker in, and it's a 53.8.
I suspect that the lap won't be as competitive as he would have hoped for. You see Brad Cook already with a 53.4. Looking at the conditions, it is quite wet, but it is lightning ever so slightly. So I think by the end of this session will be where you want to be doing your fastest lap. You see Taufik there goes into provisional pole with a 53.4, very, very closely ahead of Brad Cook. I just have to say that the middle sector of this track is honestly one of my favorite middles, if not my favorite middle sectors of any track. It's just such a cool flow and so challenging, but just fun to send the car through there.
As we see, hang on, Cook and Taufik have actually set the exact same time. JC, where are you at? Because that never happens. But Taufik is going on with these 2/10 up, and this is going to be a session where drivers will really just need to be pushing lap after lap after lap as the track conditions slowly but surely improve and the drivers find more and more lap time out of it. And really, that's sort of the pattern you find in the wet anyways. You just keep finding more and more time as you get that flow going. As Benjamin Hignett, on his second lap, he's nearly a second up. He's finding a lot of time, and that's what we thought we'd see from Benjamin Hignett, given the first lap looked a little bit reserved. Turn 12 there looked pretty solid. Found a little bit of time, but finding a lot on the entry into turn 13, not as much on the exit this time. That's really just the ebbing and flowing of the track, just the different lines that you can take through these corners. He's going to hold about 9 tenths up, and he's going to move straight to the top with a 52.977. That's a very, very solid time there from Benjamin Hickman. See what Taufik can do now. He rides it around the final corner, takes a nice wide line, trying to maximize the exit, and he's not going to quite eclipse the time that Hickman set. He's going to be about 10th off, 10th and a half off, so Taufik back in the second.
Great lap there by Hickman, really strung it together, and that's very tricky to do at this track. There's so many corners where you can just make a small mistake and it just leads Delta, and then from there on the time just keeps falling away. As we see Ricciuti here, he's up about a quarter of a second, moves a little bit out of the final corner. That should be enough to move up into P5, I think, or P6, just not quite enough to best Graham Hill there. See McAdam also popped up into P3 in the Bentley, so that's a very good time from him. And then, well, let's not say anything about delivery, but let's say something about that lap time. Delta, he is a second up, well, 1.1 second, and he's a second off of pole. Can he hold it together through the final corner? John Carter gets a great exit, and this is going to be provisional pole for supposed Pro-Am driver John Carter.
Yeah, he's got a bounty on his lap time now with that 52.8. That was a very, very good lap there from the number 22 Aston Martin. As you said, supposedly Pro-Am, and I think Benjamin Hicken's going to have something to say about these. Another half a second up on the time that he set previously, and he's really finding some good pace in the Darrell Lee Ferrari. So we'll watch him come out of the final corner once again. Will he take that narrower entry? No, he goes the wider line to maximize the exit, and I think that's probably the way to go in these conditions. Finds about a tenth of a second and holds the time nicely, and that'll be a 52.415 to take pole position back off John Carter.
Looking at the way these Deltas are improving, it does seem as though there is quite a bit of sort of track evolution. The track maybe just drying out a little bit. We have 26 cars going around, plus we have rain that is very slowly but surely lessening as well. So I think the times will keep tumbling, but a couple of drivers are going to have to do something special to answer the challenge that Hignett has laid down as Barker comes around the final corner, gets a bit of a poor exit onto the curb there, but it's good enough for P5 at the moment. See Taufik and King have gone into pits to maybe put on a fresh set of tyres, maybe just ran out of fuel, so they'll have to get out quickly. They're only going to get maybe 2 laps at most, and that's not always enough in these conditions to get the tyres right into that window where you want them. See the Kit Caterpillar delivery, again quite a fan favourite last week, and still one of the best low effort, high effort deliveries I've seen.
Yeah, definitely took a lot of time for Dylan Smith to get this livery off the ground. He's setting that forward into nice areas at the moment. He's about half a second off the delta he needs to take pole position off of Benjamin Hickman. It goes very, very wide through the final corner. Can he find it on the exit? Not really, so he's going to stay about half a second back, but that'll move him up into P5 ahead of Hill there as we watch Purcell, who has been very, very quick in practice, and right now going through the middle of the track, he is about a second up and looking good in the Flake liveried Ferrari.
Hopefully he doesn't crumble in the final sector of this lap, as that is a beautiful livery, but it is a... See, Hignett improves yet again to a 51.7, so that's another 7-10 improvement for Hignett. Does he have a leaf blower on the front of his track just blowing the water away? Because he is absolutely flying. It looks as though Purcell is on a very good lap here, 1.2 seconds up. Can he find anything extra in the final corner? Gains a lot on entry. Is he going to keep it up? He keeps gaining. No, now he starts losing a little bit on the exit, but still a net gain. It's going to be enough for about P2 at the moment. 6/10 off Hignett. Hignett is really laying down the gauntlet today.
Hignett is on another level at the moment in this qualifying session here at the Hungaroring. Before Purcell said his time, he was a second clear of his nearest competitor, which is Mr. Cook right here, our current championship leader for Sprint Racing. He is held up a little bit behind the McLaren, but he gets to the line and takes P2 back off Purcell. Oh, this is going to be very, very tight between these two. I think, yeah, Cook's backed out of it. So that will be the best it gets for him as we watch the double-decker livery of Hill around the middle sector in P8. He's about 2 tenths up, and right now that would put him up to about P5 in this session. So not too bad, but he's got time to find.
Honestly, aside from Hignett, it's very, very close in that sort of top 10. It's just he's on a whole different level. I've driven against him in quite a few enduro races, and he's always a formidable competitor in the wet. So makes good sense that he's in a good car in the wet, and he's just really putting it exactly where it needs to be. Hill here, a very good lap. That looked like he carried a bit too much speed into the final corner, but he manages to tidy it up. 4 tenths. It's not going to be enough to get him into the top 3, I don't think. No, that will be P5, but look how close it is from Purcell now.
Yeah, very tight as we now watch Jusman, our current AM class leader, about a second up, moves himself up into P6. Yeah, look at how tight that is from Jusman down to pretty much everyone else. It's not a huge gap as we now watch Pascal Armstrong, who is in the Mustang, putting in a very, very good lap so far, about 7 tenths up. That would put him well into the top 5 if he manages to hold it together for his final corner. Mustang all right in the wet, but it's not the best car in the wet around here. Does lose a little bit on the exit. Will that compromise him? Still P5. That's really good effort from Pascal Armstrong, who is now pulling off, and that will be his session done. So now look at Ben Vintner in the sofa, King Slow BMW.
Based on the delta and how far he's off the leaders, that name is unfortunately a little bit appropriate today. I'm not sure if the BMW is just not very good in the wet, but really off his normal pace where he would generally be as the Bounty Aston Martin goes off track there, unfortunately out of the shot. As Vintner comes into the final corner here, he's about 6 tenths up, loses a little bit on the exit of the second last corner there. Can he gain it again? Gains a little bit through the final corner. 7 tenths. It's going to be enough to move him up into about P15, I would say. P16 at the end of the day. Quite a few drivers still on laps. We see quite a few in the top 5 there. Cook, Purcell, Carter, Pascal Armstrong and Hill all have called it quits. Hill is about to call it quits on his final lap as he gains a 10th coming into the final corner. We saw in his previous lap he didn't have a great final corner. Doesn't have a very good exit this time. It's going to be a 10. That should be enough for P5. Very close behind John Carter in P4. David Barker will be looking to improve as well.
David Barker will be the last to improve in this session of fit, or really finish his lap. Finish the lap first to improve, but does lose a little bit of time. Gains it on the exit of turn 12. I have a feeling Benjamin has extended his advantage up front, so he's really finding his own in these conditions and could be in for a very, very good race as we watch David Barker gain quite a bit of time through the second last corner. Now into the last corner, takes a nice wide entry to get that exit, but he probably just scraps off too much speed too early and he's lost a 10th overall. That will move him up into P8, and Benjamin Hignett, 51.775, half a second clear of current championship leader Brad Cook.
Yeah, that was a pretty dominant performance from Hignett there, and the unfortunate thing for him is, of course, where's the grid? Where are the cars? It says session start there, so I thought it rolled over. Yeah, the unfortunate thing for Hignett is he's in a Ferrari, which, as we've seen, is a very, very strong car in the wet, but it's not renowned for his launching ability off the start. So he's starting next to Brad Cook in a Mustang, which, on the other hand, is a little bit renowned for launching off the start. So this is going to be a very interesting drag race down to turn 1 when they start the race.
There we have the grid. So good. The cars have not been eaten, despite the fact that they are very, very delicious chocolates. Apart from, well, the bounty there in P4. But we do not speak of that. But regardless, we will look down the group. We've got Benjamin Hignett in the Darrell Ferrari 471 Pro car on pole position. Second place, we've got Brad Cook, current championship leader, still in his chocolate livery, as is Tim Purcell. Much better qualifying here at the Hungaroring for him. He looks very strong, as does John Carter in the bouncy Aston Martin. followed up closely by Graham Hill in the double-decker Cadbury Ferrari. 2 AM-class drivers in Pascal Armstrong and Jasmine doing nicely there, P67, followed by David Barker there, number 13. Lucky for some, unlucky for others in the Milwaukee Ferrari. Then Damiano Turcolini there, P9, and Taufik in P10. That rounds out your top. Taufik being a little bit disappointed there in 10. Further down, we've got Smith in P11, Rashushi in P12. Then we have Dylan King in number 91, Aston there in P13, followed by McAdam in the Bentley P14. Not the strongest car around here, but he'll find some use out of it regardless. Tonkin in the number 69 in 15th, then Vintner 16th. Jared King in the 222 is missing last week, I believe, but he's there in P17. Then we have Hawley in 18th, Rad in 19th, Foster in 20th, Symes in 21st, Hong in 22nd, then Wright 23rd, Beaton 24th, Brando 25th, and Ning Kang rounding out the grid there in the number 30 Ferrari in P26. We have 18 seconds to go until we get this formation lap underway.
It's a very nice Springbok livery on the Symes Aston Martin there. I didn't see that last week. Just received a message from Taufik as well. Apparently he got stuck behind a slower car in quali, so he didn't quite get his sort of final lap sorted properly. So a little bit out of
Donkin's returned the pits. Someone didn't ready up.
Good. So while we're on the formation lap, a quick look at the championship standings here. We do have Brad Cook as your current championship leader, followed by Moyun Taufik and Benjamin Hignett in P3, with Jacob Weatherburn, who's not racing today, and Fadli Rahmat in P5. In the silver class, we have Tim Purcell leading at the moment, Dylan Smith 43 points behind him, Damiano Turcolini another 5 points behind that, and then Jared King, Danny Wu rounding out your top 5. In the Pro-Am class, we have John Carter. He'll be very happy with that qualifying today. It's going to give him a very strong position in the championship, followed by another Carter, this time in the Dillon variety, Norton Hurd, who's no longer in the championship, and then Brendan Corley, John Rad rounding out the top 5. Finally, Ahmed Jusman and Alex Pascal Armstrong, your top 2 here, and they qualified very close together as well, keeping that AM battle alive. Although, to be fair, both qualifying in the top 7 does make me question that AM badge, followed by Sam Aston, Tristan Digby, and Tina Chan rounding out the top 5.
Well, getting word from Tonkin, who was unfortunately towed back to pit lane for not hitting ready, lowered his screen and hit his volume button. So unfortunate affairs there for Tonkin, but there is an hour in this race at the number 69. We'll bounce back for sure.
Yeah, fortunately, Hungaroring is a track that's famous for easily overtaking. Like, there's a lot of side-by-side racing.
Oh,
You know, so that's good news for Duncan. He'll be able to get a lot of overtaking done.
Yes, certainly. It's probably the easiest track to overtake on.
I would say that's what it's most well known for.
Especially when you compare it to like Silverstone or an airport drag strip.
Yeah, you know, it's famous for not many things, but I think lots and lots of overtakes is probably top of the list.
Certainly.
So yes, they come into turn 14 here on the formation lap. Benjamin Hignett is leading the way with Brad Cook in P2. Tim Purcell right behind them next to John Carter, followed by Graham Hill, Alex Pascal Armstrong, Jusman, Barker, Turcolini, Taufik leading out the top 10 for split green here as we are about to go green for round 6 in the Sprint Series here. Good launch by Cook, but a fairly good launch by Hignett as well. He'll just need to nail the braking and he should be able to defend down into turn 1. Never mind, Brad Cook is pretty much clear already, although Hignett looks at leaving a little nose in there. Couple of side-by-sides in the back. There's a little bit of a touch on one of the Aston Martins in the back, but nobody has gone around just yet. And Brad Cook has taken the lead early here. Tim Purcell defending against Carter, and Carter sneaks up the inside. He's going to have the outside for the following corner, and Tim Purcell should be able to defend it, and that's going to compromise Carter's run, and unfortunately Barker had to check up as well, so he can capitalize on that. Oscar Armstrong all over the back of Barker as well, and they've settled down fairly quickly into single file here, so not too much chaos reigning at the moment as Alex Duncan is finally going. Going to have to do some catching up for the rest of this race, but so far so good. Fairly clean start, and the top two have checked out pretty much immediately with Ignat all over the back of Cook there. Purcell followed by Carter, Barker, Armstrong, Hill, Jusman, Bercolini and Taufik, your top 10. Bercolini is really... Whoa, that's a big old moment from Barker. He manages to catch it, and that is cost Pascal Armstrong a lot of time there as he's now under pressure immediately from Graham Hill. Is he going to try and poke a nose up the inside? They're not exactly the place you want to be doing that, and fortunately for Armstrong, he backs out of that. But that was a big moment from Barker. I'm not sure if that was self-inflicted or maybe a little bit of a touch from Armstrong. But anyway, he managed to save it. And you see McAdam there with a big old send on the inside of Taufik into the third last corner. Can he get anything done around the outside? That's a hard move in the dry. I would say it's nigh on impossible in the wet. He backs out of that. He's now followed closely by Rajuti as they come around the final corner for the first time. Brad Cook leading the way.
Yeah, it was an excellent jump from Brad Cook on the outside there. Managed to get the reaction in better than the Polster to Benjamin Hicknett, and with the straight line speed that Mustang possesses, it was actually pretty easy for Cook to take the lead into turn one. But the rest of the field very well managed. Although, as you said, yeah, Barker with the little bit of a loose moment, and Pascal Armstrong is now under a lot of pressure from Graham Hill behind. So doing nicely there in P6 where he started, but he's going to be struggling a touch, I feel, throughout this first stint. Of course, do have the mandatory pit stop in this race.
Yeah, that is a good point. Just to clarify, it's a 1 hour race with one mandatory pit stop, and drivers must change their tires. So that plays a big role in the strategy where it's not really worth carrying a full race fuel and then sort of not changing your tires. So most drivers will be running probably about 60% race fuel. And yeah, it's McAdam had a strong start there. He's going to want to make up some more positions. He's normally towards the pointy end. I think he just had a bit of a mare quali, not really placing the car in the position where he would have liked it. But so far, so good. We have the top two who have checked out a little bit, and then Purcell and Carter spreading out a little bit. Carter followed very closely by Barker, and then we have this little battle pack here just behind Armstrong with Hill, Jusman, Bercolini, Taufik, McAdam, Rajuti, Vintner, King, all within less than half a second of each other. So you can throw a blanket over them and you won't be able to see who's under there.
Well, eventually you would, because the blanket would get very, very wet and eventually become translucent, you would suggest, as that is a little bit deep from Taufik, probably just trying to maximize the exit, so he's clear of a threat from McAdam's dive bombs behind. You know how good McAdam has been on the brakes this season, as Hicknett sets a fast lap, and he looks very, very quick behind Brad Cook. I have a feeling Cook's going to be under a lot of pressure throughout the early stages of this race while Hicknett is behind, but the pit strategies, if Hicknett isn't able to get through, could ultimately decide this race.
And it's such a very tricky pit entry at the best of times, and then you add some moisture and it just exponentially gets more and more difficult. So that's going to be, it'll play a bigger role than you'd want to think. And looking at the lap times that the drivers are doing, it appears like this is a little bit of a slightly drier wet server. I know that's a bit of an oxymoron, but it's not quite as wet as it has been in other servers or sometimes in the practice server. So the pace is a little bit higher, and hopefully drivers have been able to sort out their tire pressures correctly, not get caught out by the slightly drier track, as we get a replay here of Barker on Carter down into turn one. It's late on the brakes. It's a little bit too late on the brakes. In that, just a very light little left tap on the back, so hopefully no damage and both drivers can continue driving.
Yes, the Ferrari a bit better on the brakes than the Aston Martin is, as the pit window is now open. They will have 50 minutes to make their mandatory pit stop, so between the 55-minute and 5-minute mark of this race. So we'll see what happens. I don't think we'll see any pit stops until about halfway through, as the 196 is around the 196 being driven by Brendan Pauly there. That's unfortunate for the Lamborghini driver. He is all the way at the back where Tonkin is now.
Maybe, I'm just speculating, maybe Paulie just wanted to join his teammate at the back because he saw he was lonely. They have been Enduro teammates. We see a replay here of McAdam on Taufik rounding outside of turn 12. That's going to put him on the inside for turn 13. That was going to be a beautiful move, and then he just cut me off right there with a big old bonk into the side of Taufik. So that is quite unfortunate to see, and I suspect there may be a little bit of a stick on the way to McAdam's rear end.
Yeah, we'll have to see. It was a little hard to tell from that angle specifically whether there was enough room left from McAdam or it was Taufik just turning, but we'll leave the stewards to decide that one, as Damiano now all over the back of Jusman, who isn't quite able to hold with the pace of Hill. So you see a little bit of side-by-side moment between Jusman and Turcolini going through turn 2. That was pretty nicely defended there by Jusman to stay ahead of the Porsche of Damiano Turcolini. And we'll see whether Damiano is able to do anything about the M-Class driver ahead of him as the rank continues to fall the Hungaroring, as Rashudi picks up a 15-second penalty for causing a collision on lap 1.
It's an interesting one. We didn't see any big yellow flags on that one, so I'm not sure who Rashudi would
I do have a feeling there was a car around at turn 2 in the background during the race start, but didn't cause too many issues with yellow flags, as we now see Benjamin Hignett still all over the back of Brad Cook's rear end, but down the straight the Mustang will stretch its legs, and it's very, very hard for Benjamin Hignett to be making any sort of move into turn 1. You can see the gap that they've built up over Purcell behind.
Interesting to see the drivers. This is the replay of Ricciuti's incident. So turned in on the Bentley, it appears, which caused the incident. So that would have been what?
Oh no, we got an. Oh no! Oh no!
Oh, okay, never mind. Fair enough.
So into the side of the Kit Caterpillar Mustang of Dylan Smith. Unfortunate for Smith, he's fallen down the order a fair bit by the looks of it. Yeah, down to P18. So unfortunately, is Hignett really hustling the back of the Mustang now, just trying to find any avenue through. And not easy against a car that is as powerful and as wide as the Mustang. Cook is very, very good at it as well.
Yeah, I mean, both these drivers are experienced operators. They've been teammates, they've driven together, they've driven against each other quite a lot, so they know each other well. And as you said, the different strengths and weaknesses of the cars will come into play here. I think overall the Ferrari probably maybe the superior car in these conditions, but the Mustang is no slouch, and Brad Cook is no slouch. But it was interesting to note there on the main straight. We'll see if they do it again this lap, but it looks as though Cook and Hignett, maybe Hignett was just following, but Purcell behind as well, trying to get some water on the tires on the main straight. Wondering if everybody's tires are just a little bit over the window where they want it to be, and they're just trying to get it back down into the window by cooling it down.
It'll be interesting to see what they do on this lap, and you can see, yeah, they are moving to the inside. Benjamin Hignett with the fastest lap there at 50.767. We'll have a look in the background, and you can see, yeah, Purcell sort of goes off to the side a little bit, but turns to the racing line quite quick, but he's already 4.6 seconds off the lead, so probably just stuck in his own race at the moment.
Yeah, he's in that unenviable position where you're on the podium, which is great, but you have nobody to race against, which sucks because it's boring. Oh, Hill very nearly into the back of Armstrong there. Manages to avoid the rear of the Mustang. Lives to fight another day, and that's going to put him under a little bit of pressure from Jusman now. You see in the background there, McAdam piling the pressure onto Thurkelini. And just the Bentley just dwarfing that Porsche as it's sitting right on its tailpipes.
Yes, and I have a feeling Damiano will be very aware of what braking maneuvers McAdam can pull, as Graham Hill still hustling the back of the Mustang. He's got a few Mustang versus Ferrari battles, but the Mustangs at the moment coming out on top just with the straight line speed they've got. But Pascal Armstrong doing nicely to hold off a driver of Graham Hill's caliber so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, this is split Ferrari oval, and as we've seen, the Ferrari is a very strong car, but you still need the driver to put the car in those. Oh, speaking of the driver putting the car in those positions, Jusman missing the braking ever so slightly there and running a bit deep. Whoa!
Yeah.
McAdam drifting it into the corner. Dear God, manages to hold it, but that was a spicy moment for McAdam there, as we see Cook take the fastest lap, answering the questions that Ignat has been asking. This is going to be an interesting run down into turn 1.
Yeah, here comes Graham Hill in the slipstream of the Mustang. Not gaining a huge amount. Is he going to go for a dive? He's showing the nose, and he doesn't go for it, but you can tell that the move is coming. But look at this train of cars. 7 cars, all covered by, what, probably a second and a half, you would say. Like, it's not a huge gap between all these drivers. It's amazing to see. As we continue to watch on from Damiano's perspective. He's sort of stuck between a bit of a white car or white bread sandwich, you would almost say. As we now see McAdam get very, very close to the rear. Is he going to go for a move? Has a think about it, but has to back out. But no room there to get past the Relax More Racing 844 Porsche. It's really going to go in single file.
Problem for Armstrong that he's sitting with is he's in that position where he needs to be inch perfect every single lap, because if he provides an opportunity to Hill in that battle, he gets compromised in any way. He has another 5 cars directly behind him that will be looking to pounce immediately. So he just can't afford to make any mistakes. And I know that's stating the obvious generally as a racing driver. You can't afford to make mistakes. But when there's these many cars so closely behind you, the pressure is really, really on. And you'll be seeing that on the Delta as well. And as a, again, supposed AM driver sitting in P6.
Ooh, cars around in the background there.
66 and 27, I think.
Yes,
It's
so...
and Kong. Ooh, as we see McAdam, the first driver to really bite the bullet out of this lead pack to dive into pit lane and try the undercut.
Yeah, interesting strategy there from McAdam. He feels he's got more pace than Damiano circling in front as we watch the replay here between what looks to be Kong in the 66 and Vintner in the number 27. I have a feeling this could just be Kong braking a little bit too late, or yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it looks like he lost the brakes on the outside there, and
I think
straight
he just
to the back.
the wheel onto that curb, looked like when he was braking.
Yeah. Oh, look at Hignett all over the curb. Yeah. So really wants to find his way through. But honestly, he may need to take a little note out of McAdam's book and jump into the pits a little bit earlier. As McAdam now does get a 10-second penalty for that contact with Taufik, so he's deemed to have been a little bit overzealous in that one, which I think is fair enough. Now we'll see Hignett, does he get the better exit out of turn 11? He does, but can he use it to great effect into turn 12? No, he's just not close enough. The Mustang gets a good enough drive out of the corners, even in these low grip conditions, as they both have a slide out of turn 12. That Hignett just isn't able to get close enough to make the move on Cook. And is he going to stay out? Yes, he is. So they're going to try and hold to very similar strategies for the moment.
The problem with the undercut this early is you have to carry about probably 20 or so extra liters of fuel, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's enough to have an effect on the overall pace. But interesting with McAdam as well, as he dove into pit lane, I'm wondering whether... Oof, that's very deep by Hignett there. And that's going to give Cook a little bit of breathing room for the first time in this race. But McAdam dove into pit lane before he got his penalty, which I think is a big brain move, because he doesn't have to serve it during the race, which doesn't cost him that additional time, and he can start building that gap towards the end of the race and then get the least affected by the 10-second penalty. So I'm wondering if that was part of the consideration or if it was purely just going for the undercut, getting out of that train of cars.
Well, either way, it's forced Graham Hill into the pits to try and react to the undercuts that McAdam has attempted. So we'll see what happens here. It will be very critical for Hill to get out ahead of the Bentley, as we now watch double-decker Mosaic Motorsport car stationary in pit lane. Scott McAdam coming through the final corner now. What will the lap time
moving.
be? Yeah, it's going to be tight. I think Hill might be able to get it ahead, and yeah, I'd say that's pretty comfortable. So McAdam has lost a bit of time through the undercut, just trying to get those wets into a good working condition, but gives both these drivers a good open track to continue moving.
As we see Taufik here, he might be another driver who's considering diving into pit lane as well. He's been stuck behind this train of cars, absolute cluster of cars. As we see Pascal Armstrong there under all sorts of pressure from Jusman side by side going into turn 13, coming into turn 14. It's a send up the inside by Jusman, and Tercolini is also there. Pascal loses one position. Is he going to lose another? I don't think the Porsche has the legs on anything down this little straight here, and look at the Mustang fighting back against that Ferrari of Jusman, who's going to be later on the brakes. It looks fairly even. He's going to be under. Ooh, that was so close with contact between Tercolini and Pascal Armstrong there. In the background as well, Ricciuti and Taufik also with a big old battle. So this thing has really kicked off, and this is going to cost all of these drivers a bunch of time, which may well allow somebody like Hill and Pascal McAdam to undercut all of these guys.
Yep, and that was exactly their reasoning for coming in early. They wanted to avoid these little battles that were brewing, and now that they are fighting quite hard, they're all just going to be losing time to each other. And Hill, who is in some nice clean air, may not have a reference to work with to understand the wet weather as well, but won't be caught up in battles like these five are. So that will help him in the long run, as Jusman and Pascal Armstrong, the two AM class drivers, exchange positions about half a lap ago. Good battling between those two.
Yeah, nice clean battle as well there for the AM class lead. And some other guys for duty putting pressure on Tercolini now as well. So we are live. This is not a replay. Just to confirm that Pascal Armstrong seems as though he's just dropping off the back of Jusman there. As we see Cook takes the fastest lap, and Hignett says, nah, me. And he takes the fastest lap. So those two guys are absolutely just battling it out. So that gap is up to 2 seconds now between Cook and Hignett after that fairly large mistake from Hignett a couple of laps ago. He hasn't been able to get back up to the rear end of Cook thus far. So is he coming into that window where he starts considering maybe taking a pit stop?
Perhaps. I mean, right now he seems to be holding very steady pace. So wouldn't be wise, in my opinion, to come in right now, especially since he's got the gap ahead to work with. But he does need to keep in mind that, well, 2.5 seconds, just trying to think. It's probably enough of a gap for if Hignett comes in for Cook to react and cover quite comfortably, I would say. So I think Hignett just has to toil away a little bit longer in these conditions in this first stint.
To just get back on that pace and start closing the gap down a little bit. As we see, this is Tini Chen. What's happened here? What has happened with his livery, more importantly, because it's not loaded properly. As he comes down to turn 11.
Oh,
no!
Oh,
okay.
that will be a big slap. That will be a massive hammer.
Yeah, that. Yeah. Yeah, he was the braking.
Oh, Damiano having a real good look at Pascal. He really doesn't have the pace right now. Jusman has broken clear by nearly 2 seconds at this point. So right now, the superior of the two Amcos drivers is Jusman, as the gap out front between Cook and Hignett has stayed at 2.3 seconds. So Cook is now managing this race very, very nicely. The Mustang a little bit kinder at its tyres, with Hignett having to push so hard to try and get through.
Wondering if that little slide, it shouldn't have been, but that little push wide from Hignett maybe just roasted his front tires ever so slightly for a couple of laps, and they're coming back down into the window now. I mean, that gap has come down by a tenth over the last lap, so let's see, on the latest update it was 2.3, it's 3.1, so mistake by Hignett, I would guess. And that is not what he wants to see on the leaderboard at the moment. He wants to see that gap getting smaller, so... Oh, that's a big old moment from King in the back there.
Which one? They are both Linus turn on the track there. You've got Dylan King and Jared King.
The Kit Caterpillar one.
Yes. Oh no, the Kit Caterpillar. No, that would be the Shelby Power one. Kit Caterpillar's Smith, is it not?
Yep, you're correct.
So,
Yep,
yeah.
well, somebody was drifting. Somebody was drifting.
Yeah, I have a feeling it was this, must say, well, has it got the 24 on the side, but 222 as the number on the wheel. But that's an interesting one.
That is what is called false advertising. As
my favourite.
On board here with Barker, he is putting some pressure on Carter here for P4. Carter doing very, very well so far, running a fairly comfortable race in P4 pace-wise. I mean, not comfortable with the amount of pressure he's under, but they have started to close that gap a little bit on Purcell as well. So yeah, I'm wondering what happened to Purcell there. Now the gap between Hignett and Cook is back down to 2.4 again, so maybe the Delta board is just playing silly wigs, or maybe drivers are just making mistakes. It is getting to sort of that midway stage of the race now. Tires are... Taufik has boxed, as we see Xining Jan get a 15-second penalty for an absolute annihilation of turn right edge. So,
oh, yeah. Wittner up the inside there. Right, that's a dive. I don't think he intended that, as he goes too deep and right back through.
Just a little bit of a, hello, how are you doing? I'll just go park over there somewhere if I get the car slowed down eventually.
Yeah, definitely not intended from the BMW car, but I will say that is a very light penalty for Ning Chang, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was quite the impact on right there, so I'm not sure he'll be... as you said, Ning Chan should be feeling happy with the size of the penalty, but somebody who's not feeling particularly happy at the moment is Purcell. Seems to be struggling, just hopping off ever so slightly. Carter and Barker just look like the faster two drivers at the moment, more consistent. That gap at the front just keeps ebbing and flowing as well, 2.4, 3.2, in and out the whole time. Not sure what's going on there. Wonder if either of them will dive into pit lane. This lap doesn't appear to be the case. So will any of these three try and dive into pit lane? We're getting really solidly into the pit window now, and this is where you can actually start benefiting from that undercut, as you won't be carrying too much fuel, more than any of your competitors, so you can potentially get some fast laps in and undercut the drivers ahead.
Yeah, certainly. On that lap, Hignett lost 0.6 of a second, so he's definitely struggling on those tyres, and he may almost be forced into the pits very, very soon, which will not be what he wants to hear. But if it does end up that way, it ends that way, unfortunately. But I think it's just a testament to how well Cook's doing out front. There's a reason why he's your current split leader this season for Green.
Isn't the reason that he's just using the fastest car? Isn't that how it works?
Oh yeah, absolutely. it never comes down to the driver. It's always the car. I mean, there's a reason why Lewis Hamilton won 4 in a row and Max Verstappen won three in a row. And now is struggling to even get to the front. It's all about the car. Definitely not about the driver.
Exactly. I mean, it's not as though Cook has been super consistent this whole season. Really performed well at every single track and not put a foot wrong, really. So, I mean, that's not the case. It's all the car, but he has been supreme this season. He's been super fast everywhere. And I mean, apart from last week where he had a bit of a nightmare start to race 2, which tends to happen in those reverse grid races, he still recovered to like P5 or 6, I think, at the end of the race after being nearly last at the end of lap 1. So yeah, even when he's been in a compromised position, he's still done absolutely bloody brilliantly to get back in there. We see a little bit of a switch back there. I'm not sure the driver's involved in 69. That's Tonkin normally.
Yes, that is Tonkin there, and
Oh.
Ward, P16 driver there, the one or something.
That
Not
should have
sure.
been Foster.
604. It was Foster.
A little bit of a argy-bargy there side by side, but nothing too bad from that, I would say. Chuti dives into pit lane, and that's going to drop him back down the field with that 15-second penalty that he will have to serve in pit lane. And Taufik is still behind McAdam and Hill, so doesn't appear as though staying out has worked well for him behind that battle pack.
That's a little bit deep from Rad, and now here is Vintner trying to go around the outside in turn 2. Oh no. That was clumsy from, sort of both of them. They just kind of converged together at that kink, really. Yeah. Not sure what to say about that one.
Well, let's see upon reflection and a replay if there's more to say about this. So they're going side by side. That is...
Looks like Rad held his line, and Vintner may have just drifted a little bit wide into him, really.
Yeah, I would say that is a case of avoidable contact, but they are both still going in the same direction, although Vintner's M4 is looking fairly second-hand at the moment. But the one good thing about the wet conditions is the damage isn't quite as detrimental to just outright pace in these tricky conditions. Obviously, it's not a benefit, but not quite the same effect as it does have in a full dry race. So hopefully, won't be losing too much pace. Although it could be a fair chunk of damage given how hard he hit the wall there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. This battle for P3 is still raging on. Got to give kudos to Kana for putting in a very solid stint, setting lap times about 0.8 off of his overall best, and he's managed the tyres a lot better than Purcell. Barker is pretty much matching Carter in all stats there, so doing very nicely against a pro driver is John Carter, and you would suspect so-called Pro-Am isn't so Pro-Am in this race.
Yeah, he's been not so Pro-Am this whole season. He's really quite a long way ahead in the championship as well, just being super consistent again. Really not having particularly bad rounds when it's gone against him, and delivering when it's been the opportunities have been there. So good season from him so far. He's under all kinds of pressure from Barker here, but he's keeping his cool and still piling the pressure onto Purcell as well. Could be interested to see who will be the first to blink, but look at the gap between Hickman and Cook now. It's 1.9. So things have changed up a little bit again, not quite close enough to put pressure on Cook, but it's good to see for him that the delta is coming down as we are about to cross the halfway point. Either of them into pit lane. No, they both stay out. Will any of these drivers dive into pit lane? Surely somebody tries to undercut out of this group.
Nope.
Oh, apparently not.
No pit lane and antics from any of these drivers in the top 5 so far. Of the drivers that have pit, currently it is Graham Hill who leads away 1.2 seconds clear of McAdam, who has that 10-second penalty, followed 2.5 seconds back behind him is Taufik, who isn't really gaining any time. So perhaps, yeah, the overcut just not really having any sort of effect, although is setting his fastest lap time. So maybe the pace of Hill and McAdam is just very, very, very good so far.
I'm thinking he'll be looking to sort of capitalize towards the end of the race when their pace drops off, as we see Armstrong there has dived into pit lane along with King. But the problem with that is the pace delta on the worn tires versus the good tires isn't huge in terms of overtaking ability. So I don't think he'll be, even if he does catch up to McAdam and Hill, he won't be in a position to really capitalize in terms of gaining positions. So yeah, it's just not turning into a very good race what I've been so far today.
Certainly not. So we'd be wanting to forget a little bit about this one, take some lessons from it. All sort of stemmed from the bit of a disappointing qualifying performance where he got stuck behind a slower car and couldn't really stretch his legs, but he'll come back stronger for sure, as we'll continue watching on with Purcell, Carter and Barker in their battle, and also keep an eye on what the lead drivers do. It does look like they have continued on for one more lap, and Heaton is still closing. He's now 1.3 seconds back. Does anyone blink here? Still no, so they're going very, very long as we have crossed over the halfway mark of this race with 28 minutes to go.
The very interesting thing is going to be, where does Graham Hill come out into relation to these guys after they performed their pit stop? Because there was, if I recall correctly, there was a little bit of a gap to these guys behind Pascal of about 4 seconds or so before those drivers decided to pit. So it's going to be interesting to see if that gap has closed down at all, whether Hill and McAdam had the pace to sort of bridge that gap, or what is going to happen. And I think, I get a feeling we'll start finding that out in the next couple of laps as Jusman goes very deep there, manages to keep it off the painted stuff, which are pretty deadly in these conditions. But yeah, Purcell is really slowing this little group down here.
Certainly, they're setting reasonable sort of lap times in the mid-51s, but the problem they have is the drivers that have already gone to the pits of Hill, McAdam and Taufik, they're setting lap times in the low 51s, if not the high 50s, so they are definitely being gapped a little bit in terms of lap time, but the question is whether they, one, had enough of a margin before those drivers pit, and two, where they can get something out of the tyre delta, which, as you said, isn't as high in these wet conditions, but is definitely still there, if not just slightly.
I think the problem that Hill and them might be running into is they do have Ming Chan coming up just up the road 4 seconds now, and they're catching him fairly quickly. And he does not have to yield at this stage. He's still racing them for 4 positions technically. So that could potentially cost them a little bit of time. Does anybody dive into pit lane this lap around? Doesn't appear to be. Did Barker? Yes, Barker did.
Barker did.
And followed by Jusman as well. So there goes the first one. Now, will they answer immediately, or will they try and stick it out?
It's probably a smart call from Barker. He looks like he was the fastest of the 3 there. Now that these drivers have a blue flag to contend with there in Foster. We'll see when he manages to go away. In fact, he has that good blue flag behaviour there.
Well, they went nearly to Turkey. So yeah, these guys are going to have to answer, I guess, to Barker. Will they dive into pit lane immediately? I think Carter is the one that really needs to dive into pit lane. He's probably being held up by Purcell ever so slightly. So he's the one that's at most risk for Barker. And yeah, hopefully for him, Barker doesn't have a good pit stop. We all know how tricky pit stops are in ACC. It's very easy to lose 3, 4, 5 seconds just by a very, very minor mistake. So Barker will need to be pitch perfect, and Carter will have to have an in-lap off the guards to try and maintain position against Barker.
If I was Carter right now, I wouldn't want to have a coconut for a brain, and I would be coming in at the end of this lap, as it just seems like staying out for any longer will be just gets undercut by Barker. Jusman's in a very, very nice position. Not sure where they've come out on the circuit. Just looking for that number 30. So Jusman's come out ahead of Pascal Armstrong. Barker, I believe, has come out behind Hill. of this as Cook is in.
Cook is in, and Hignett does the fastest lap. So yeah, Barker.
Oh wow,
there.
Barker's come up behind McAdam and Hill and just ahead of Taufik. Interesting. So huge gains from Hill, really.
Yeah.
Carter is
and
now in as well.
It's interesting that Purcell decided not to box at that stage. I think he's going to lose quite a few positions here if he's not very careful. Where it's going at the moment, but Hill, as we said, he caught up to Ning Chan. Ning Chan does not have to let him go. This is costing him valuable time. He'll be praying that Ning Chan dives into pit lane this time around, because it is just bleeding lap time for him. As you can see, he's just so much faster. There's Carter. Will he get moving soon? Still
He has-
stationary.
I think Ning Chang's coming in just based on where his dot is.
Yep.
Yes, so Carter is now moving. Where is he in relation to that pit exit? I think he's going to get overtaken by at least Bill McAdam. Will Barker go through as well? Barker will go through.
Yes. And Taufik as well.
Wow. Oh, that is that undercut. Very, very strong later on these stints.
That's very interesting. I'm wondering if that was just the time loss behind Purcell on that lap, or maybe just the poor pit entry, because that's a substantial amount
That's
of time that
huge.
he lost in the driver's head.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, Hignett is staying out there. He's not coming into the pits. He's going to try and use as much of the clean track as he possibly can, with Cook having to negotiate a little bit of lap traffic, and just pray that he can get some kind of overcut, which, based on what we're seeing in front of us, is looking less and less likely.
To be fair, Hignett did the fastest lap of the race when Cook pitted as well, so he still has a lot of life in those tyres left, and well, left in those tyres, I should say. So maybe he's just banking on that he does have the pace, and he was just struggling in the sort of the spray and the dirty air behind Cook, and trying to run as long as possible. Hopefully answer on this lap. Cook has a little bit of clean air, not much. He does have the 222 car right ahead of him. Hopefully that will get out of the way fairly effectively, but McAdam here is putting the pressure on Hill, but he's been behind him for quite a few laps and not really looked like he's able to get past Hill in that beautiful double-decker Ferrari.
Yeah, Hill doing nicely at the moment. McAdam wasn't really able to gain all that much until there was that slight hold up behind him, Cheng, as we see King and Paulie come into the pit. So there's only two drivers left to pit, and they are two of your front runners in this race, Hignett and Purcell. As we now see McAdam, is he going to dive it to the inside of Hill? He's going to go for it from a long way back. Hill gives him the room, and that is a very clean move from McAdam. And now he has to sprint and sprint and sprint, because he has 10 seconds to break clear of Hill if he wants to hold on to what could be a podium in this race.
Yeah, he is. Is it possible for the stewards to go to his house and investigate his brakes? Because some of the stuff he's able to do under braking is just absolutely incredible. He's so late on the brakes, and he still manages to pull it up beautifully to the apex. Really, really fantastic move by him in these tricky conditions, and well driven by Hill as well, noticing the move is coming and giving him the space, not just turning in when the car appeared on his inside. And, yeah, beautiful bit of racing there, but great move by McAdam, and as you said, he'll need to really get
It's
a
a
move
dive,
on.
that's not
Just
gonna
wouldn't-
work.
That's not a good move.
He's back down, and now
Pascal
Pascal. Through goes Pascal Armstrong. He gets it done on Jasmine. Forces King a little bit wide. That's the Dylan variety. And now Jasmine goes around the outside of Dylan King. They're going to go side by side through. Yes, there's a little bit more contact. Oh, that is very sketchy racing there between those two.
It was a bit rough from Jasmine there. He got a bit elbows out. Purcell is into the pit lane. Hignett is staying out as we get a replay here of Pascal Armstrong. Ever the opportunist, seizes the smallest little opportunity with that little tap there, gets the move done.
That was
Very well.
Brilliant
Sorry.
opportunism.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that was
Yeah.
a bit rude by Jusman there, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. As now Jusman is on the back of Pascal Armstrong. Is going to try and go for the move into Purcell. Somehow Purcell still comes out side by side with David Barker, despite going very, very long. So perhaps the undercut really only works in the short interval laps, but Barker does get through. So, oh yes, there's a blue flag off to the side, manages to get away nicely. So Barker did manage the undercut, but it wasn't all that easy in the end.
No, it's well, would hardly call it an undercut really effectively because he still technically came out behind him, but just had up to 10 tyres and was able to get the move done coming down into turn 2. So the benefit was, well, minor.
It was
at
about
best,
the benefit was about a second because Barker did have Carter in between.
Yeah, that's also fair. But yeah, so McAdam not yet able to build the gap just yet, and he does have a couple of quick drivers behind him. So with that 10-second penalty, that's dropping him down back all the way to like P9 at the moment. So he's really going to want to get a move on, do some purple laps, and build that gap as much as possible to lose as few positions as possible. On track, he's done brilliantly to get it into P3 all the way down from starting in P13 at the start of the race. So great drive on track, just unfortunate with that incident getting the 10-second penalty for him.
Yeah, definitely. Being solid stuff here. The move on Taufik was just a little bit overzealous, unfortunately, and with that 10 seconds, it's going to compromise what could have been an excellent result coming from outside the top 10 of P3. But right now, it looks likely that Graham Hill could take that. But now David Barker is clear of Purcell, 1.7 seconds behind Hill. If Hill's tyres start to fall off towards the last stage of his stint, that could become a very interesting battle, and honestly, that could be McAdam's opportunity to start breaking clear, but he has to break clear by a long way in 17 minutes.
Not convinced that Purcell is going to have the pace to challenge Hill, although he does have much fresher tyres. But my question at the moment is, how is Jusman ahead of Pascal Armstrong?
It'll be because Jusman made a move somewhere, I'd say.
Well, I could have guessed that as well. I mean, when did the move happen is my more specific question. That was because not too long ago we saw that bit of a ding-dong battle that these three drivers had, and Armstrong came out on top.
I have a feeling it could have been a move that happened into turn 1 potentially. Jusman does seem to have a little bit more pace throughout the lap, so may just get a slightly better run out of the final corner than what Pascal Armstrong does, able to force a move to the inside somewhere. Have a look regardless, as Hignet's still going along with 16 minutes to go, and right now he is just entering sector 3, and Cook is halfway through sector 1.
Pace? I mean, Hignet's pace is still looking pretty strong overall, even dealing with traffic and stuff like that. So, the question is what type of pace? Okay, 59-second gap. As he builds, he boxes this lap, so Cook is going to absolutely have to cook on this lap. I hate saying that, but he will need to do it.
Let him
Will this be a
cook.
good? Oh, that is a very poor entry from Hignet, a very slow entry there. He was slowed down to pit limit speed about 30 meters before the line. That could be all Cook needed to get that lead back in this race.
Yeah, he was definitely being conservative there, was Benjamin Hignet, which sometimes can be a good thing, but other times you have to just really go for it. He is right down towards the end of his pit lane, so he's going to be stationary for... Did he overshoot the box? That's going to be tight, I think. But Cook should be able to go through very easily at this rate.
Yeah, I would say so. I think space is good enough, and as we saw, that pit entry from Hignet was suboptimal. Let's see as he comes around the corner. So Ignat, as you mentioned, right towards the end of pit lane, so he's going to drop and basically exit almost immediately. He hasn't dropped
Gonna
yet.
be-
There
that's
comes
gonna
Luke.
be a
He's
big gap.
miles ahead. Absolute miles.
Mugged. Absolutely mugged by Brad Cook. So staying out late, it was a fair effort from Benjamin Hickett, but it's not worked in his favour, and now he's got 14 minutes to close what looks to be about a 7-second margin, so highly unlikely, you would say. It would have to be a second a lap.
Well, especially given the pace difference between the two of them so far through this race has been, what, a tenth? So I don't think that gap is going to be coming down anytime soon, really.
No, we are. Watch on with Brian Kong, who was involved in a bit of an incident earlier on in the Spaghetti 66 Ferrari. Is now all over the back of Foster, trying to dive up the inside of turn 12. Got a good exit out of turn 11 out of the S's, and he's going to get done very easily. Foster leaving the space, but does get the better exit, and that is really well judged there by Foster, actually. Just allowing Kong to go to the inside and giving Foster the opportunity to maximize the exit. Now, Kong, is he going to go for move at the final corner? No. That's a back over, and that was probably the smart, wise choice in the end. But now, the Ferrari should have the advantage on the straight line speed over the McLaren, you would say. Doesn't look like he got a great exit, so Foster will hold that position for now, which is a very good effort. Although, Kong, that is a late send, or a bit of contact. You'd have to be careful with that. I think he has blended out of it a little bit to let Foster continue through.
Yeah, that was a late dive there by Kong, very late on the. I mean, he got it into the apex, so fair move, but it was quite the send there.
Most definitely. So it hasn't been the cleanest sort of race, but he's definitely got pace. Oh, don't go around the outside here. No, 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 no. Yep, that was about how I expected that to go, although probably could have done with a few more fireworks. You know, see a Brendan Pauly get involved with this battle.
I was about to say, if that's how you expected it to go, then we had different expectations. I was expecting a Ferrari on its roof near that building there, so they tidied it up fairly okay, all things considered.
Yeah, it was probably good awareness from Foster to cut the inside to avoid making contact with Kong there. And Kong handled the car quite well, even going on that curve, which in these conditions, not easy to do. But yeah, the good news is everyone has done their pit stop in this race, so there will be no issues of any drivers getting late penalties or disqualifications for not doing their mandatory stops. As we continue to look through the field, looks like yeah, Ignat 6.5 seconds back. Not going to happen for him. Going Taufik still behind Purcell at the moment, and this is just halting Taufik's efforts a little bit as Jasmine gets penalty for the contact there with King a little bit earlier on. King has actually managed to get past Pascal Armstrong, by the way.
Interesting to see that Minchande also with a stop go 30, which I assume was for speeding into pit lane, which is not ideal. And then looking at the top three, so McAdam 2.5 seconds ahead of Hill, 2.5 seconds from Barker. He's not building that gap as much as he needs to. He is building it, but needs to find a couple of extra tenths a lap to really mitigate the pain of that penalty, because at the moment it is still dropping him to, I would say, P9 at the moment.
Yeah, P9. I'd say the best it will probably get him is maybe P6 if you really get to hustle on. But with 10 minutes to go, yeah, I'd say the podium is out of reach. So, will ultimately be between Hill and Barker. And right now, Barker isn't finding any inroads on Hill. So is finding inroads on our driver. There was Taufik on Purcell. Is he going to go for a move out the inside turn one? He does have a look, but can't make it work. Purcell just managing that pace nicely at the moment to hold the M&M livery behind him.
Taufik is he's a very careful driver in these type of conditions, almost to a fault really. Sometimes just not aggressive enough to move past these drivers, but he also wants to avoid getting a penalty. You know, P7 is still scoring some solid points, and his championship contenders are scoring podiums, then he still needs to maximize what he can get without getting additional penalties. So it's a very fine line to tread between being aggressive enough, as you need to be at this track to get the overtake done, and sort of holding station. And at the moment, he's choosing discretion over aggression.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to salvage what points he can in the championship at the moment. I think he knows that P6 or P5 after McAdams is probably the best it gets for him in this race. So not taking too many risks. He knows he still has a bit of time and just needs to find an opportunity when it is sensible, which I suppose makes a bit of sense at this point in the race, but once it gets to about 5 minutes to go, it'll probably be all plots off.
Yeah, let's see if he can get some aggression. He certainly looks like the faster of the two drivers at the moment. And Purcell is defending well. He's placing the car correctly where he needs to and getting the right exits, but this is very close behind him here, Taufik. If he's going to have an opportunity, this may well be one of the better ones. See Purcell moving across a little bit, sort of half defending. And Taufik just not having that top speed delta that he needs to get alongside him. Background there, Turcolini also showing his nose to Carter. But nothing coming from that. Oh, excuse me.
Just looks like Purcell has a little bit more top end speed to be able to defend enough against the attack of Moin Taufik behind. So the Flake livery finding good speed at the moment and just needs to hold on to what it can. It's about 7.5 seconds behind Academy at the moment, which would give him enough of a buffer if there is a little bit more action between these two to be able to hold off the assaults of the M&M car. And yeah, it looks like Taufik is a little bit faster, but Purcell just fast in all the right spots to hold on to P6 at the moment.
Yeah, let's see what Taufik is able to do here. I think, to be honest, Luke has just been better this season overall. That's why the lead is only 87 points, so it's not a huge difference at the top of the pack. But
we were 49, we were.
Yeah, certainly this track is getting quicker and quicker, and look at that gap, it's 4.8 now, so it's taken what, nearly 2 seconds out of Cook after the pit stop. And I think the question he'll be asking himself is, where was this pace when it was needed?
Yep. Also a little bit of a what if he got the start that he wanted, but Cook has managed the race out front valiantly and has done a very, very good job as we drop down to Dylan Smith, who is looking to fight against Ben Vintner. Smith got caught up in a little bit of an incident with Rashidi, who's a little bit further up the road than Smith at the moment, but the Kit Caterpillar Racing entry is looking to move its way up into P14 here with a potential move on the BMW of Ben Vintner, and that Mustang will have good straight line speed. BMW's not too bad, but with the damage that Vintner's got, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle, and Smith can't do it on this occasion, but if he gets a good enough run out of the final corner, that will be his opportunity right there. Meanwhile, for P4, which will end up being P3 in a race, Barker is starting to challenge Hill a little bit, so that final spot on the podium probably won't be decided until the very last lap of this race.
Absolutely, and Barker, as we know, a very quick operator. He's been known to be involved in an incident every now and then. He's kept it very clean today, and certainly has the pace, and hopefully he can get something, well, get onto the back of Hill and pressure him in this final, what it will be about 4 more laps, as we see Tonkin on the back of Rando here. And when I say on the back, I mean almost on the wing of Rando. They're getting very, very close to the back of his fellow Aston Martin driver there, trying to move up into P17 after, shall we say, technical difficulties starting the race. I guess that's a polite way of putting it.
That's that's a very, very light way of putting it, but I'd say that's fair. I will say, pretty good recovery from Tonkin, all things considered, given as much as we were saying it's an easy track to overtake on earlier, it is the complete opposite. Not easy to overtake it on at all, and he's found his way up into P18, potentially P17 in this one, after falling a long way back with the pit lane start. So it's a valiant effort from Alex Tonkin.
Yeah, absolutely. And Taufik, he's still piling the pressure on, and because of Person just being that couple of tenths a lap slower, that's allowing Carter and the Glini behind to really join up to the back of this battle now. And that's the last thing Taufik would have wanted, is an additional player in this game, because he can't afford to lose any more positions given the championship battle that he's in. So he needs to find a way to get past that Flake livery. It's just the battle for chocolate superiority between M&M's and Flake. I know which one I prefer. And it's definitely not the bounty.
Yes, yeah, definitely not the bounty there. In third in the queue here, but the Flake out front so far is doing very nicely. We see, terrible, awful. Barker's made a mistake.
Yeah, I was just about to say, look at that gap now.
So Hill is now pretty secure, provided he doesn't make a mistake himself. But now, this battle for P6 all of a sudden just turns into a little cheeky battle for P5, provided Barker doesn't run away from Purcell. Have a look at see what happened here to Barker. See, he's close-ish there over the inside of the chicane. Looks pretty clean at the moment, but just runs a little bit right onto the grass. Kept it out of the wall. That's a good effort. Keep it out of the wall.
That's a costly error there for Barker. I think he'll have the pace to sort of just start driving away from Purcell. As you can see, that gap's already starting to open again. Because of these mistakes and because of the battling, those gaps are opening, and it's sort of playing into the hands of McAdam. Is he going to run out of time? I would think so. There's not a lot of time left. Speaking of not a lot of time, 3.4 seconds between Hignett and Cook as well. So Hignett has really been flying since the pit stops, but I think it may be a case of a little bit too little too late. He's not really going to be able to challenge there. So McAdam 4 seconds ahead of Hill now. Barker a further 2.7 behind. Purcell 1.6. And then very close drivers behind that. So McAdam is sort of piling into that little gap behind Purcell at the moment. And the more these guys can battle, the better it is for McAdam. And the worse it is for Taufik, as he is now under immense pressure from Carter right behind him as well.
Yep, any advance that he makes on herself here could end up being costly, as we are moving on to what will be the final lap. Cook is starting now as Hickett across the line. He's still 3.4 back, so it's a good effort to try and get closer, but it's just too little too late, unfortunately, for Benjamin Hickett. And he'll be ruining that slightly average start that ultimately saw him lose the position to the Mustang. But great race from Cook, but still not over yet for P6 in this race. Purcell has been defending valiantly pretty much all race. He was in a bit of a leave zone, just in the middle, the top 5 there for a while, but has since got back, but has managed things well. Will Carter potentially go for a move on Taufik? Can't do it. Turcolini is still hovering in there as well. Another solid race with him, and then the top 10 will most likely be finished out there by Dylan King there in the 91 with a Justman's penalty.
Yeah, not too many penalties given the tricky nature of the track and the conditions. So overall good forms. Obviously there were a couple of penalties that were served during the pit stops as well, but overall I think it was only about 5 or 6 penalties throughout the race. So fairly clean performance from Split Green here. See, Cook has opened the gap up to Hignett again, so he is pretty comfortable at the front as he starts going into the final sector. These guys are halfway through their final lap. Can Taufik get some last lap heroics here? Will Purcell make a mistake? He hasn't really put a foot wrong so far today. Taufik has held the pressure on, and it must be a dipped flag because it just hasn't rumbled at all. Throughout the whole race, really held up very well in the battle. Brad Cook will cross the line as your winner here for Split Green round 6. Benjamin Hignett will cross the line in P2. P3 on track will be John McAdam, and then closely followed by Graham Hill, about 4 seconds behind. And then we get to Barker, and then we get to this absolute train of cars here. None of them have been able to really get a move done, but they have done brilliantly to follow each other so closely, without any contact, without any even lunges really in the last sector of this race. As Purcell, he'll be happy with a P6. He drove very well. Taufik will be disappointed with a P7. Carter, I think, will be very satisfied with a Pro-Am win. Purcell also your silver class winner. And then Turcolini, followed by Jusman, rounding out the top 10. But Jusman does have that penalty to serve, and that will drop him down behind Pascal Armstrong, making Pascal Armstrong your AM class winner today here in Split Green.
As Dylan Smith was able to get through on Ben Vintner in the end. So up to P14 for Dylan Smith, just behind the culprit of his little incident turned toward lap 1, Stefano Rasciuti. Vintner there, P15. Then we had John Rad, who will actually end up being third in the Pro-Am class. That's a very good effort from John Rad there. Solid race from him. Then Tonkin with the recovery up to P17, followed by gaggle of Pro-Ams in Kong, Rando, Holy, then Foster in the AM class, and Symes, King, Wright, Beaton, and then Ning Chang holding in the pits, not finishing this one.
Yeah, right. Of course, the unlucky recipient of a Ning Chan bonking, so that really put play to the end of his race, really. But overall, that was a pretty interesting race. A couple of battles throughout the field, and yeah, good battle for the lead in the beginning, but that sort of tapered out just after a small mistake from Hignett, and all Brad Cook needed was just that very tiny mistake, and away he went. And speaking of Brad Cook, we see the final results here with Cook taking the win, Benjamin Hignett in P3, Graham Hill in P3 in the Pro class. In the Silver class, we have Tim Purcell, Damiano Turcolini, and Dylan Smith rounding out the top 3, followed by the Pro-Am class with John Carter, Dylan King, and John Rad taking out the 3rd position. And in the AM class, we have Pascal Armstrong, Jusman, and Foster getting onto the podium there. So, yeah, overall, very strong performances across the board, and maybe, just maybe a little bit late in the season now for reviews, but I think there's a couple of these drivers that may be looking at a different color number plate for next season.
Certainly some really solid performances throughout the field, as you mentioned. Nice quintuple of Ferraris there from P2 down to P6. But yeah, very solid race. Front 2 were in a league of their own today, but Brad Cook, despite not taking that pole position, was able to clinch the victory with a very good start and a well-managed race. Hignett had the pace, but just may not have managed things quite as well as his Mustang rival. And then Hill rounding out that podium, very good effort. McAdam there, who was P3 on the road, ended up dropping down to P8, just 500ths behind John Carter and 4/10 ahead of Damiano Turcolini. So right in that gaggle. Very solid races tonight. And we thank you for joining us tonight. We will be back tomorrow night from 7:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time for Split Blue, and then at 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time for Split Red. We'll have the North American splits happening on Friday morning at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which will end up being Thursday night at 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time over in North America. But thank you, Pete, for joining me tonight. It was an absolute pleasure. Had some very solid racing. And we will see you all tomorrow night for some more action at Hungaroring.
Right.